Thank you. I'll call the meeting to order at 6:30 p.m. In the event of an emergency, the building may be evacuated. You'll be required to vacate the building by the rear entrance and gather at the breezeway between the library and art gallery buildings. This is a council's designated emergency muster point. Under no circumstances is anybody permitted to re-enter the building until the all clear has been given and the area is deemed safe by authorised personnel. In the event of an evacuation, a member of council staff will assist any person present with a disability to vacate the building. Apologies of absence. Are there any, Mr. Chief Executive Officer?
Mr. Mayor, I did take a phone call from Councillor Duffy, who will be some 10 minutes late. Otherwise, no apologies.
Thank you. Can I have a move and a seconder for lateness? Moved by Councillor Steadman, seconded by Councillor Greenhalgh. All in favour? Carried. Item 1.2, live streaming and recording. This council meeting is being live streamed and recorded. By speaking at the council meeting, you agree to be live streamed and recorded. Please ensure that if and when you speak at the council meeting, that you ensure you are respectful to others and use appropriate language at all times. Orange City Council accepts no liability for any defamatory or offensive remarks or gestures made during the course of the council meeting. A recording of the council meeting will be made for administrative purposes. Acknowledgement of country. I would like to acknowledge Wiradjuri people who are the traditional custodians of the land. I would also like to pay my respects to elders both past, present of the Wiradjuri nation and extend my respects to other Aboriginal Australians who are present and all the other people here with us tonight. Item 1.4, declaration of interest. Does any councillor wish to declare any conflict of interest in any matter for consideration at this council meeting? Councillor Greenhalgh.
In the Finance Policy Committee meeting, 2.1 and point 2.3, Bloomfield Junior Rugby League donation. I am Secretary and Life member, so I will leave the room and not vote on the item.
Thank you. Any others? Councillor Power.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I also wish to declare a conflict of interest in the Finance Committee 2.1, 2.3 of the Bloomfield Rugby League Club. As the artist that in the documentation is a good friend and he worked with my business. Thank you. I'll be leaving the room. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor. Councillor Kinghorn.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I would like to declare interest in PDC items 2.3, 2.4, 2.5 and 2.7. There's significant pecuniary interests as my husband's business has done work on these sites.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Whitten.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to declare an interest on the Finance 2.1 related to point 1. I'm the chair of OCTEC and we have donated to this same fund. It's my interest is non-pecuniary and I'll be staying in the chamber to vote. And in planning, item 2.3, I'd just like it noted for the record that myself and yourself, Mr. Mayor, actually had a meeting with the proponents of this particular DA. So I'd just like that noted for the record. It's non-pecuniary interest. Room.
And I would like to declare that a non-pecuniary interest in that also. The same item 2.3 as Councillor Whitten indicated, we both met with the proprietor of that business, but I'll be staying in the room. Are there any others? The council meeting will now adjourn for the conduct of the open forum. When addressing the council, speakers at the public forum must comply with the Code of Meeting Practice and all other relevant council codes, policies and procedures. Speakers must refrain from engaging in disorderly conduct, publicly alleging breaches of the council's code of conduct or making other potential defamatory statements. I ask that all be respectful of this chamber and at all times here tonight. We have 8 registered speakers. First speaker is in relation to CCL item 6.5, lease of the Orange Regional Conservatorium Incorporated, and we have Dr. Pam Ryan from the Orange Regional Conservatorium. Doctor, before we start, I'd just like to introduce the councillors as we go around for those who you may not know. Councillor Whitten, Deputy Mayor Councillor Greenhalgh, Councillor Mel McDonald, Councillor Power, Councillor Mallard. Across the other side of the table, we have Councillor Ruddy, Stedman, Councillor Judge, Councillor Kinghorn, and Councillor Peterson. You have 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mayor and councillors. You already know how grateful the Conservatorium is for the beautiful building we're about to occupy early next year, and also to the support of successive councils over 30 years. And so anything I say this evening is within the context of a deep appreciation to council and council staff. I'd like to make, as said, it's item 6.5 I'm referring to tonight, and offer 3 points for your consideration. The first one is the nature of our business and the status of the Conservatorium. We're a not-for-profit organisation with charitable status. We're governed by an elected and voluntary body. Crucially, approximately 90% of our income goes directly to staff salaries. So leaving 10%, obviously, of our overhead for overheads and operational costs. Any grants or donations, and we are generously supported by the community, they're tightly tied to those specific purposes, naturally, not for operating costs. So while we're operationally lean, we are efficient, successful and a financially disciplined organisation in my view. And that would be detailed in the 4-year projections that we gave to Council when we started negotiating around the lease. We're also a complementary cultural partner of Council, I would say. So other cultural facilities in this area, and I've visited the gallery and the museum today actually, are operated by Council. And so we're, on the other hand, a self-sufficient organisation, and so we will operate that building in terms of all its running costs and staffing and so on. So in that sense, we relieve the Council and the ratepayers of that burden. The second point I'd make is of our value to Orange, that as a not-for-profit, while we don't directly pay to Council, benefit to Council, the benefits we bring are profoundly social and economic. So under current government policies, New South Wales state policies, they talk about culture and what culture brings. And so they talk about cohesive communities. And last year, for example, our staff and students delivered 322 performances to over 18,000 audience participants. We contribute to the creative industries. We employ 40 local people. Cultural tourism, for example, in regional New South Wales in 2023 raised $6.2 billion in regional New South Wales. Orange being a cultural centre and hub, the Conservatorium contributes significantly to that kind of figure. Importantly, culture is critical to the development of children and young people, and that's our core business. So in June, for example, and the Mayor attended, 700 primary and secondary students from government and non-government schools came together to make music in choirs and bands and with drums and all sorts of noise. Those workshops we provide as a service to those schools. 2024, for example, 3,000 school students across the Central West, so it's not only Orange, came to us, and 2,000 adult students as well. So all those people supported in their development in music. And we provide workshops, free workshops, professional development for staff and students. So we directly invest in Orange's future workforce and our intellectual property and intellectual capital. Which brings me to the third point, and that is that to suggest that we could continue the lease as we've had with Council is about continuing our Council's investment in Orange cultural vibrancy, the educational opportunities for our city and the economic well-being of this area and region as well. I guess to move away from existing lease arrangement would be quite a dramatic shift and a significant challenge for us with the way we operate that I explained in the first little point there. So We urge you to consider our long-standing history together, our proven track record as an operation, and the immense value that we bring to Orange through music and the cultural fabric that we belong to. And so on that basis, I trust you may endorse the lease agreement that comes before you this evening. Thanks, councillors.
Thank you, Doctor. Our next speaker is in relation to PDC item 2.3, development application DA 218/P15 in brackets 5 lot 218 Hawkes Lane, and it is Mr. Justin Micallef from Orange Enterprises No. 1 Proprietary Limited. You have 5 minutes, sir.
Thank you, councillors and staff, for the opportunity to speak again this evening. I represent Oakstand, the developer of the adjoining land subject to this modification before council. Oakstand is established in Orange. We're developing Alchemy, the estate next door to the development subject to this modification. We are currently completing a upgrade of Shirley Road on behalf of with council under a works in kind agreement, and we have committed to delivering a 4-hectare park as Hilltop Park within the Shirley release area within our Alchemy project. Within that park, we've relocated a number of mature trees on the property after consultation with council and the community. And we see that as setting a nice established park, which will be unique in Orange when it's completed in a couple of years' time. We've committed to Orange. We have an office here, we have staff here, and we have a number of projects within Orange. And we're committed to delivering good outcomes for the community. We'd like to commend the staff for a thorough assessment report. I would like to correct one minor item in the report. The report makes mention of this matter being a dispute between two neighbours. Can everybody hear me, or the sound seems to be cutting in and out?
All good.
No?
All good.
The report makes mention of this matter being a dispute between two neighbours. From our perspective, this is not a dispute at all. It's simply a matter where the adjoining developer is seeking to avoid delivering the infrastructure and the public benefit they're obliged to, as approved under a development consent approved by this council 10 years ago, on which we have relied upon. This is a matter of principle and is completely contrary to the established case law as outlined in our submission. I also wish to make it clear, as outlined on page 26 of the report, the applicant is not required to construct full width of the road, as often has been referenced in their submissions, but 3/4 width of the road. As the adjoining developer, we're required to complete a 1/4 width of the road, which is on our land. The applicant in their submission acknowledges that at the time of the development approval, they willingly agreed to move the road onto their land and agreed to construct 3/4 of the road width as opposed to half the width as shown in the DCP. If the applicant changed their mind after the approval was issued, the applicant was within their rights to appeal if they're dissatisfied with the consent and the obligations imposed. No appeal was pursued at the time. In fact, the developer proceeded to design the works, and a subdivision work certificate was issued by council confirming the applicant's willingness to construct Joseph Drive to the 3/4 width required under the development consent. The applicant has proceeded to take the full value of the consent and the increased land value as a result, developing and selling all lots within the development, then deciding at the end of the development to only construct the road and the central swale, which is an overflow from the Hawke Lane Dam, to half road width, and has blatantly now sought to avoid the burden agreed to at the time and imposed under the development consent. It is a well-established legal principle that a person who takes the benefit of a development consent must also take the burden of the obligations attached to it. It is also well established that council's discretionary power to modify the consent should not be exercised to the applicant's favour, which is what is requested by the applicant in this instance and is why the recommendation is for refusal. If the recommendation in the report prepared by council staff is adopted, there is no financial implication to council, as confirmed in the report. If the councillors seek to amend the recommendation and support the applicant's modification, we understand the cost to council, as quoted by the applicant within their modification application, is estimated at $914,000. We understand this road is not within the Shirley contributions plan, and this would be a direct cost to council and the community. If the application was supported, it undermines the integrity of the development approval process. It prejudices the parties who've relied upon the consent, and it burdens council with the cost of funding the infrastructure delivery. Furthermore, it sets a precedent for other developers that may seek the same dispensation in the future to abscond from their responsibilities for the delivery of infrastructure imposed under a development consent. There is no benefit to council in relieving the applicant of their responsibilities. While the applicant suggests the neighbouring developer, whom I represent, can undertake the work, there is no legal mechanism available to transfer this obligation onto the adjoining developer, and the council would be left to fund the cost, as noted, at $914,000. The applicant's proposal to transfer the obligation to deliver the road and infrastructure to Oakstand or council is completely contrary to established case law. And we have that on legal advice, which is provided in our submission and is included in the report.
Sir, I just ask, hang on for a second, I have an extension of time. Councillor Power, thank you very much. You're free to continue.
Thank you. The application must be refused. It does not facilitate the orderly and economic delivery of land. It does not deliver public infrastructure. There is no community benefit in approving this application. Approval would result in a substantial financial cost to council, and the application is not in the public's interest and must be refused. Thank you for your time and consideration, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
No questions. Thank you. Next speaker.
Yes, John Cole, you're unmuted, sir.
I am now, thank you.
From Messenger Cole Solicitors.
That's correct.
Thank you, sir. You have 5 minutes.
Could I just at the start of this, because I have to get across to the council, the history, the current DCP, the problems with the report, the inadequacies and inaccuracies of the last gentleman's comments, and I might need an extension because this is something that has significant ramifications for our client, for the people that have exchanged contracts, the 15 people that have exchanged contracts and are waiting to build their houses, and for the community generally. Could I firstly say that on the last occasion, the council went out and did a site inspection. You would have seen, or those councillors that did, or if they've been at some other time, that our client has constructed the part of the road that was meant to be constructed on their side of the boundary. They've constructed the middle of the road with the drainage that's required there. The other half of the road, which in accordance with the DCP was to be constructed as stage 2, and I'll go to that document in a minute, and it's unfortunate that it hasn't been provided to you in your report, but I need to go to that. The other half of the road is in the orderly and economic development of the land, the obligation of the gentleman's company that just made that presentation. And I'll come back and I beg you for the time to be able to do this, to be able to tell you the inaccuracies. Just so you know, yes, I'm a partner of Messenger Cole, and yes, Tom and his father and his mother are solicitors in the Orange area for a number of decades. Now, yes, I'm in the Sydney office, but can I just say this? The friend or that gentleman took a lot of time saying we're committed to Orange and was trying to sell that to the council. Just so you know, my client has been delivering blocks in the Shirley estate from the start. They've produced just under 10 years, over 200 blocks, which are out there. And if you drove out and had a look, you've seen it. They produce blocks in accordance with the DCP where other people have owned land opposite their land. The road's done on the boundary. They built their house half. Stage 2 was to build the other half of the land. And that's what the normal DCP says. I'll come back to it in a minute. They've still got 39 blocks finished. And as I said, they've got a lot of people, $5.5 million worth of sales out there waiting for the decision on this one to deliver housing, which, as we all know, in the housing crisis, And in just the economic environment that we currently live in, we need to get on with it. People want to build their houses, they put their lives on hold while this all happens. Now, the housing delivery was a clear priority of council. The history of the Shirley estate, for those that aren't aware of it, was the council went out and borrowed $10 million, or over $10 million, I'm told, to build the pump station, the water supply station, and they needed the Section 711 developer contributions to come back to them to, A, subsidise that cost, because they went up front and did it to create this whole environment out there, and they needed the water rates that come from it. The general manager at the time, which was Gary Stiles, and we can provide affidavit, and ultimately, if this is the way this matter goes, we will provide affidavit evidence to show what the agreement was of the council with our client, and we can have affidavit evidence from our client as well. The agreement was that
Mr. Cole, can I ask you to refrain from using names of people who may be potentially involved in further action? Thank you, sir.
I don't apologise for that. I'm just seeking to establish the credentials of my client in relation to an agreement that was previously made with council, where our client couldn't get the landowner next door's approval to build our road at a flat level and put buffers and landscaping up on theirs. That's why the agreement was entered into, for our client to move all of the road onto his site and to construct the half of it and the middle part, which he has done. So that was all it was, that if this is the way the matter has to go, and I've never seen a matter or addressed a council to see a matter to have to go this way, that it is established that I believe, as a lawyer and a town planner, that this was the agreement the council did. They wanted this development to proceed, and so we moved it all onto their site. They lost land, they lost yield to do that. The problem with this application came from when the plan was put before council. It had what was called a ransom strip, and the council office were perfectly legitimate in saying, what's that? Because the DCP says and envisages under, and it's not in your report, under page 72, that you have to have a look at orderly development achieved by two-stage roads along existing property boundaries. Now, if you look
Mr.
at the
Cole,
DCP,
can I just hold you up there for a sec while I get an extension? Do I have any? Councillor Whitten and Councillor Duffy, you're free to continue, sir.
Thank you very much. It's much appreciated. So the DCP, which isn't referred to in your report, said this is to be achieved by aligning two-stage roads along existing property boundaries. In such cases, the first landowner to develop, us, shall be required to provide stage one road design, which includes the medium buffer strip, which we have, and stage one road. The road may be operated as a one-way lane, which is proposed becoming dual direction road only when the second landowner develops. The new roads are aligned along the existing property boundaries. The first to develop is to include the stage one, including the Central Road Reserve, and that's what we've done. But what happened here, and that's what the DCP shows, we're not in contradiction to the DCP. We didn't ask to change the DCP. We responded to an agreement with council to give up more of our land, to move it onto our site, which is now land that, if this is approved and our subdivision certificate is released so people can buy their blocks of land, council owns that land as a public reserve. And if the developer that just spoke wants to build the road to access his half of the road as implied, as expected by the DCP, the council has the land to let him do it. There is clearly a windfall gain of $930,000. It's not the council's responsibility. This is a complete furphy. The council doesn't hold responsibility to build that developer's road. The developer does. If he doesn't want to develop it, he doesn't want to have blocks of land in accordance with the DCP, that he builds his half of the road, or even less than half of the road, then he doesn't have to. It's not the council's responsibility. That is just incorrect as a matter of law. And if that gentleman was a lawyer, anyway, I won't go over there. There's some other matters.
I appreciate you don't, Mr. Cole, but
yes,
what I will say is you've got 1 minute to sum up, please. 1 minute to sum up.
Look, it asked you to defer it. The DCP is quite clear as to what it sees as the proper way of dealing with it. The officer's report quite clearly says the guidelines in the DCP are indicative ways of achieving planning outcomes. It is recognised that there may be other solutions, and that's what was negotiated with the council here. They moved it off the middle of the boundary so that the development could be delivered. And the original agreement underlies that. The final thing is, in terms of the ramifications in relation to costs that the other speaker spoke about, and he's wrong at law. I can go through the case law. It's just incorrect what he said. There's no summation of why he said those things in relation to that, but we don't have time. But clearly, our client has made an agreement with council, has people that he has a moral and legal obligation to deliver their blocks of land, is not going to pay $920,000 for the neighbour's road next door. And the ramifications of it, it's a factual reality. It's not a threat.
So your time's up now. Thank you very much.
Thank
you, Mr. Cole.
Thank you. I appreciate your time, and I'm sorry it got heated a bit, but I've never seen a report like this. Anyway, thank you.
Mr. Cole. Any questions, council, at this point of time? There being none, thank you. Councillors, the next speaker is with regards to PDC item 2.2, development application DA 19/195-2, lot number 4, Ophir Road. And our first speaker is Elizabeth Edwards from the Orange District Historical Society. Thank you. You have 5 minutes.
Good evening, everyone. This is very brief. We at Orange Historical Society believe we have come across evidence the Narambla homestead, which is the birthplace of Banjo Patterson, was located within the park boundaries, but more detailed research is required to confirm that information. If true, it would increase the heritage significance of the park substantially. We support the imposition of the buffer zone between the park boundary and the location of houses. We also support the imposition of archaeological conditions on the adjoining properties. If any archaeological remains are found within the boundaries of the park, we believe that archaeological investigations should be carried out. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next speaker on the same item is Sarah Passy.
Good evening. My objection to this DA is already registered to the Planning Committee, but I want to make 3 brief further points in person, so thanks for your time. I request that the Planning Committee make a site visit to appreciate the layout of the proposed houses versus the Memorial Park. However, to truly appreciate the importance of the site, you might need to drive past on about 300 days of the year. I drive past the Memorial Park twice a day, and it is rare for there not to be visitors standing there, admiring the view, reading the information boards, and appreciating the money and effort which Council have put into upgrading the Banjo Patterson Memorial Park. Council have provided a really lovely spot which is well used and an asset to Orange. So why should a development then be put in around the park which will completely change the outlook and the area? The review of environmental factors submitted with the DA claims, and I quote, "The proposal will not adversely affect the value of heritage, landscape or scenic features of the city." Respectfully, I'd say that's absolute misleading nonsense. Secondly, at first sight, it appears that the DA proposes large lifestyle blocks, which, it's claimed, will be complementary to the blocks on Rossi Drive on the other side of the valley. However, on close inspection of the plans, you can see this is not the case. The restrictions on the building area caused by the flood zone on one side and the exclusion zone on the other side from the tip mean that the building envelopes are actually quite small. They're squeezed right up against the fence of the Memorial Park and in a long, compact row. So there won't be sort of pleasant gardens or screening trees next to the park. There'll be a row of houses, as against the park fence is the only place that the DA can squeeze them in. My third point is that the DA is of unique interest to Orange and to the Planning Committee. Every proposal that crosses the committee's desk is of local interest. Some of the proposals you see are of regional interest. But I put it to you that this proposal is of national interest, unique. It's no exaggeration to say that putting a housing estate right on top of the site of Banjo Patterson's birth is completely inappropriate. Council has a weighty responsibility to care for the birthplace of Australia's national poet. Visitors come from across the country to experience the Memorial Park, which is of literary interest and colonial history interest. We've already lost Narambla Mill in the 1970s thanks to a short-sighted planning decision taken then. So please do not make a similar mistake by allowing this ill-placed development to proceed. We've made quite a few planning mistakes in the UK where I come from, I promise, but no one ever put a housing estate on Shakespeare's birthplace. So please protect the Banjo Paterson Memorial Park and its surrounds, which are of similar national significance. Protect this place for future generations of Australians. Thank you.
Yes, Sarah. Our next speaker on the same item is Elizabeth Griffin from the Friends of Banjo Paterson Park.
Thank you for the opportunity to speak on this. It's something very close to my heart. I'm assuming that everybody has had a read of all the submissions and things that have been put in by everybody. So you have a fair idea of the feeling that a lot of people have about this. But I'm president of the Friends of the Banjo Paterson Memorial Park. This group was actually commenced, excuse me, to highlight the importance of the park and the surrounding area. So our interest is in preserving the ambulance of the park. Now, I'm not against development or progress of the city. In fact, I can see a wonderful future for Orange, and that's why I made it my home. My area of particular interest is the Memorial Park because of its significance in the history of Orange. When I was president of the Orange Historical Society, I walked this area with Professor Ian Jack over several days while he was preparing the report on the conservation of the park. And again, I would assume that a lot of you have had a read of this document. Not only is the valley the birthplace of Banjo Paterson, but there were moves by the pioneers, John Templar, William Dale, Tom Lane, to develop the village of Orange within the valley. We know that at one point there was something like 33 families living and working at Narambla. And the name Narambla comes from the Wiradjuri language, meaning a place of many hills. And a person only needs to visit the park to appreciate why this name applies. The Friends of the Park concerned the buildings around the park will inhabit this rural vista. Hoping in the future to not only make the park user-friendly, become a tourist destination, but also to have it registered as a historical site on the National Register. So we're concerned that the effects of the development might impact on that application. We're also concerned that any future development would damage the underground water table. And in view of that fact, that the area has been identified as a potential flood area. And after heavy rain, the bottom end of the park near the creek becomes quite boggy. And I understand that one of the developments is actually on that section of land, well, three of them actually, on that section of land. That there'd been an increase in the traffic out there on Ophir Road, and at present it's sometimes fraught with danger when you want to turn into the park or to leave it. It'd be interesting travelling on this road with more roads turning onto it, and I hope that this problem will be addressed in the near future. Even if there's only one road turning into the new estate, it could introduce traffic problems, to say nothing of the noise that would be generated by the increased heavy vehicles. Excuse me. Now you might laugh at this, but sitting out there in the park, you notice that there's a lot of a wide variety of birds that fly over the park and around the area. And the peace and the relaxation of that bird song brings to the person who's sitting there listening. Professor Jack recommended that the area not be fenced in with modern colorbond fences or high buildings to spoil the ambience of the vista. He was concerned that future development might infringe on the rural aspect of the valley and that the curtilage of the park should extend considerably beyond the present boundaries of the reserve. And again, you'll find that in the report, page 46. Any changes to the original application that have been modified may have been advertised, but unfortunately this was missed. Therefore, we were unable to comment on these modifications. Acknowledge that Orange City Council are the trustees of the park. I'll remind folks that the park was given to the people of Orange as a memorial park. It was gazetted by the Department of Lands as reserved on the 18th of April 1952. We want to move forward with pride that any decisions made concerning the area will be done in the best interest of the people of Orange and not just individuals or developments. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Councillors, the next item is with regard to item PDC item 2.5, development application DA 68/2025, in brackets 185 Leeds Parade, self-storage units, and speaker is Kerry Fragar.
Mayor and Councillors. My name is Kerry Frager and I'm here tonight to further discuss the proposed storage units at 185 Leeds Parade. I submitted a document to Council on the 27th of March raising several issues relating to the impact on the nearby residential area, which lies just 60 metres to the west and has no protection provided by local topography or vegetation. One of the major design considerations for minimising this impact would be to remove the bright yellow roller doors facing the residential area. This would minimise noise, traffic movements and light impacts over what is to be a 24/7 operating period. I've consulted with one of the most experienced town planners in the country, who also happens to be my father, Max Frager, who has confirmed that it is highly unusual for storage units to be designed with roller door access and hard stand areas facing nearby residential areas. Rather, the rear of the units should face the residential area, and therefore the noise-generating hard stand area would also be shielded by the building. While the acoustic assessment on page 256 concludes there is no adverse impact caused by the operation of the facility, I note that it refers to the traffic noise from Clergate Road. This road, which separates the development site and the residential area, services just one house, and on occasion also provides overflow parking for Brendan Sturgeon Oval. As far as I'm aware, there was no traffic count conducted as part of the acoustic assessment. Having lived in Pioneer Place for 20 years, I can confidently say that noise from cars on Clergate Road and a very limited number of trains is minimal and short in duration. The area has been a quiet and peaceful place to live. The proposed facility will operate 24/7. If Council finds that these design changes cannot be made, then I request that the condition 36 be reinforced to require appropriate privacy screening within the western boundary of the property along the length of the railway corridor and the southern boundary. While page 259 states that the existing fence design along the railway corridor boundary will provide adequate visual screening, I note that the proposed fence style is open palisade fencing, which provides no visual or noise separation for the residential area. Lastly, condition 48 is requested to be reinforced by Council that all goods be stored within the units and nothing be kept on the apron or hard stand area, as this is known to have caused visual and pollution issues at similar self-storage facilities. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much.
Ms Frager, so can I just get you, just for Councillors' benefit, to repeat those two condition statements since we've got a little bit of time?
So the last one was condition 48.
First one was?
36.
Yep.
So privacy screening within the western boundary of the property.
Yeah.
Along the western boundary. Railway corridors and the southern boundary.
Second.
And then, yeah, was talking about the open palisade fencing, and then condition 48 is requested to be reinforced by Council that all goods be stored within the units and nothing is to be kept on the apron or the hard stand area.
Thank you.
The next item is with regards to FPC item 2.1, number 2 in brackets 1, small donation application, Orange United Church. And we welcome Reverend Andrew Cunningham from the Orange United Church.
Good evening, everyone. Thanks for the time and the opportunity to speak this evening. The Hot Meals outreach began 5 years ago during the COVID lockdowns when most other food provision services for vulnerable people closed down. That's why we do a takeaway meal, because it started in that context. We average 150 meals every week, and some people who come have been have been there since the beginning, since it started 5 years ago. But we also always see a turnover of people as well, as some people either move out of town or get on their feet, or other people have facing some difficult situations, so they come along. But it's also not just about food, it's about community and about care for our volunteers who are there. They get to know people, I get to hear their stories, sometimes are a shoulder to cry on. Last year it cost us $26,000 for the year, which is about $500 a week. Obviously, with inflation, that could be slightly more this year. Since submitting the application for $10,000 to Council, we have been given a larger than expected grant from Octec, as Councillor Whitten referred to earlier. And we've also received a donation from one of the Rotary groups in Orange as well. With that in mind, and recognising that the usual maximum donation in this category is $2,500, I would ask that you consider a donation of $5,000 instead of the original request for $10,000. Please note that this will provide 1,500 meals and will fund our service for 10 weeks.
Thank you, Reverend. Thank you, councillors. We now resume for the council meeting. You can look at, there are no notice of motions or rescission. So we go to item number 5. Bear with me, I think I've...
2 and 3.
Yeah, I have. Just bear with me. I missed a page. Item number 2, mayoral minutes. There's a recommendation on page 5. I'm happy to move them. Can I have a seconder?
Happy to second.
Seconded by Councillor McDonald. Any discussions? Councillor Peterson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you for doing that minute. The only question I had was on page 7 regarding the medical students. Happy for it to be taken on notice, but I'd love to know if there was a return of service obligation.
Thank you, Councillor. I think we can answer that.
Look, I'm not sure there's a written contract obligation. I will take it on notice, but there's a hope.
We just move the councillor's microphone. Help him there. Thank you. You have another question, councillor? Thank you. Councillor Mallard?
Thanks, Mayor. Just a question in relation to page 10, the second paragraph under energy there. Great to see the joint organisation trying to get funding from the EPA for a landfill emissions education officer. We know landfill is one of the big areas left to solve in terms of greenhouse emissions. I wanted to ask a little bit further on in that paragraph, it refers to a Central New South Wales joint organisation emissions reduction regional opportunities report, which is available on request. I would like to ask, could we please request that report and have it circulated to all councillors? And I'd also, if possible, if we're allowed to circulate it to members of the Environmental Sustainability Community Committee, I'm sure they'd be interested if we can check on.
Absolutely. We'll follow that up. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor. Councillor Kinghorn.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I also had a question about the medical student scholarships. And I will just, it's not an interest because she doesn't have one of these scholarships, but my older son's partner is in this first cohort and she has a scholarship with the Rural Doctors Network. And it makes such a big difference to their ability to study because they really are full-time in the hospitals for most of it, so it's hard for them to work as well. I was just interested, this was 3 students for 5 years from the first cohort that graduate this year, and then they'll do another 3 students for 5 years. So the years 2, 3, 4 and 5, there isn't one. Is that, am I reading that correctly?
I'll have to take it on notice. Can I supply more detail by email? Because it's a great program, but I'd like to answer it if I could.
Thank you.
Yep.
Any further questions, councillors? None. I'll put the motion. All in show of hands. Unanimous. Thank you. Item number 3, confirmation of minutes of the previous meeting. There's a recommendation on page 19. They're the minutes from the meeting held on the 17th of June 2025. Can I move in a second? Move it by Councillor Peterson, seconded by Councillor Greenhalgh. Any discussion? Yes, Councillor Kinghorn.
Thank you again, Mr Mayor. I was just curious, when we did item 4.3, which was the post-conference reporting requirements, we had a lot of discussion at the time about whether it was okay for multiple attendees to contribute to the one report, but it doesn't really mention that in here as an option. So I'm just wondering whether I misunderstood that at the time or...
Mr Chair, I took point 6 on page 23 to mean that and I'm referring to the conference I just went to, and I was tapping away to prepare a template, that I would prepare the bulk of it, and then each councillor is going to contribute their what we call takeaways. That's what I took 6 to
okay,
me.
all right. I did see
So
point
that-
6. It didn't mention councillors, so I was just wondering.
When I'm complete, I'll ask those councillors who attend anything to contribute, and then it'll come back to council.
Okay, thank you.
Any further discussion? Being none, I'll put the motion. Show of hands. Unanimous. This council meeting will now adjourn for the conduct of the policy committee. So I'll now hand over to Councillor McDonald for the Planning and Development Policy Committee.
And I will hand over to Mr Hodges, please.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I'd like to open the Planning and Development Committee meeting for the 1st of July 2025 with the time being 7:16. I note we've got some declarations of interest from Councillor Kinghorn for item 2.3, 2.4, 2.5 and 2.7. And just a note for 2.3 for Councillors Whitten and the Mayor having met with the proponent. Do I have any other declarations? Ready. Item 2.1. Items approved under delegated authority of council.
This is a recommendation, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Whitten. Can I have a seconder? Thank you, Councillor Power. Any discussion on these items? Oh, I'll put the motion. All those in favour, raise a hand. Councillor Ruddy instead. Thank you. Excellent. Unanimous. Okay. Item 2.2, development application DA 19/1995 in brackets 2, lot 4, Ophir Road. Now, before we go to the recommendation, I do just want to suggest that we take up the suggestion of a site visit. So rather than the recommendation as written, I would like to move that we defer this for a site visit.
I'll second.
Thank you, Councillor Mallard. I just think given that it's such a historically significant site and there are these concerns, I do have some concerns that some community members might have an expectation that we can overturn the existing consent, which that's not what this application is about. This is a modification of the 30-year-old consent, so unfortunately we can't go backwards. But I think it's important that we have a site visit to understand, like in first person, what the issues are, and to see whether there's even a couple more tweaks that we might be able to make. Did anyone else want to talk? Councillor Mallard.
Yeah, thanks, Mayor. Yeah, I agree that I think we
Chair.
should take the time.
Sorry, Chair.
Chair,
You
sorry.
called me Mayor. I'll take
My
it. but-
apologies. My apologies. Yeah, look, I think, yes, we should take a little bit of time to look at the options with this one, noting it is a 29-year-old development application. It hasn't proceeded in that time. I understand the developer is now trying to find a way forward with it, but I'm very mindful we haven't largely had to grapple with the issue of zombie DAs in the way that a number of coastal councils do, where you have things that were approved decades ago, they were enlivened, and they were approved under entirely different contexts in terms of environmental laws or other issues. In this case, the work that's been put in the past few decades into the development and the recognition of Banjo Paterson Memorial Park, the work on unearthing and acknowledging the cultural heritage is the real challenge that I'm grappling with on this one. So yeah, I'd like us to take the time to work it out. I'm not completely averse to the idea of residential development there. I think there could arguably be benefits if it's done appropriately and sensitively. Like, I know there are issues in the park with at times vandalism and theft happening, which having some homes in the area could help in terms of passive surveillance. But yeah, I do think we need to take a careful look at this one and work through what options we've got in terms of how we can try to get the best outcome in the constraints of it being a modification to an existing development. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Mallard. I will just get a comment from the director. This the 1995 consent has actually been acted on. This is just the residual land of that consent that hasn't been developed. Is that correct?
Yes, Chair, that's spot on. So it included originally to the northern side of the creek line there, so Rossi Drive. That was where it was acted upon, because normally development approvals that haven't started expire after 5 years. So this one was acted upon. It was just the residual land opposite the entrance to the Resource Recovery Centre that's the subject of this modification part.
Thank you. Any other discussion? Councillor Ruddy.
Can I just ask one question?
You may.
Through you, Chair. I can't find it now because there's far too many pages for me, but I was reading earlier about in one of the letters there was a request between lots 2 and 3 to have a strip of land so that there was still access from Banjo Paterson Park to the creek. It doesn't appear to be something that's in there, but it's probably something that I would like to maybe discuss a little bit more when we do the site visit and explore a little bit. That's all. Thank you.
Any other discussion? All right, so I'll put the motion that we defer this for a site visit. All those in favour? Excellent, unanimous. Thank you. Just note that Councillor Kinghorn's chamber. So we've got item 2.3. Oops.
Chair, I'd like to move a deferral.
Do you have a seconder for that?
I may speak.
You may speak.
Thank you. Chair, I'd like to move a deferral based on procedural fairness. The Mayor and I did meet with the proponent, and I was a councillor during this particular Shirley subdivision debates. Not sure if the Mayor was here at that time, but he may have been. Seems to be understanding now, whether it's done through official documentation or unofficial documentation. I think I would like the opportunity, and I believe the Mayor would as well, to speak to the staff about it, which we haven't been able to do to this point due to other events that have been happening with the Mayor and myself in interview processes and other things. So that's the reason for my asking for the deferral. Everybody who knows that Orange is very proactive in its development of the city, and certainly Shirley is one of our flagship developments, and we want to make sure that we don't put the council in a compromising position if there are artefacts that support the proponent's evidence. So that's the reason I'm asking for the deferral, Chair.
Any discussion? Are you asking for a referral just for to the next PDC?
Of course.
I'm just conscious of the fact that this is a 10-year-old DA. It's already been deferred once at the request of the proponent. I mean, I guess theoretically we could keep bouncing it down the road, but at the end of the day, that $900,000 is going to go up with the cost of living, everything else going up. So, I don't know. Councillor Duffy.
Thank you, Chair. I just want to support Sir Whitten's assessment of what I think is wild. I just think there's something not quite right here by the proponent as well. Let's get to the bottom of it. Let's defer it and let's look at it, because I think it blow up in our face. It may not, but let's get to the bottom of it. I support the deferral.
Councillor Ruddy.
I'm confused about what we're worried about. Everything's on paper. What are we concerned about?
I believe, if I can speak on Councillor Whitten's behalf, correct me if I'm wrong, that there have been allusions to documents or evidence that other agreements were made outside of the consent. But I don't know. Director, do we need to seek legal advice? Because, I mean,
we won't go into legal comment.
No, but do we need to seek it?
To whether there's any more information. Look, our staff have assessed the application, the plans, the file of the original consent, all documentation that's been submitted before it. So, and
Just bear with us.
Just for procedural, Chair, the discussion should be public. This is a public chamber for the record. Whatever the CEO is discussing with you is a discussion for the public record. It should be for all of us to hear.
Procedural possibility.
Yep.
Look, I'm happy to put it to the vote, but I do want to actually speak against deferring it. Our staff assess applications based on what the proponent puts forward. Our staff have done that. They've done that very thoroughly. And the proponent has, by acting on the consent that was issued back in 2015, which included the requirements to build 3/4 of that road that they're now disputing, that was clearly stated in their conditions of consent. By then enacting, like taking action on that consent, they've accepted those conditions. And it just seems a bit disingenuous and maybe a little bit heavy-handed to at the final 11th hour come to us and say, well, we've got $5.5 million worth of land we want to release. They've known for 10 years that this is the work that they needed to do. So this has been to us before. I don't see any reason why we should be going against the recommendation of staff at this stage or deferring it any further. But Councillor Power.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I will speak against the deferring. Noting again, as what you've already mentioned, there's been 10 years in the pipeline in relation to this development. We were briefed after our briefing on a Friday, I think it was a couple of weeks ago, in relation to this development.
Correct.
When they brought it up, that was 2015, that council moved us through. They signed off on the dotted line that everything that required, including with the report, that they would adhere to. They have not adhered to, so why should council take that on board and then it cost us $900,000? 900,000. We need to consider this, Madam Chair and councillors, in relation to this deferring. As what you mentioned, I echo your words, we can't kick it down the road anymore. 10 years, 2015 to 2025. So I speak strongly against the deferring of this, and and we'll let it low where the voting lies. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Councillor Mallard, and then to the Mayor.
Happy for the Mayor to go first, if you like. Actually,
thank you, Councillor Mallard. I'm going to speak in favour of the deferral for the following reasons. I had the opportunity with Councillor Whitten to speak to the proponent regarding this, and Mr. Cole himself asked for a deferment. So he's prepared to, and his client are prepared to forego a bit more time for us to hear this information and to say we're not kicking it down the road. We're actually listening to the proponent who himself says, please look at all the documents. He believes, and I think he mentioned 2 documents which we're not privy to. An opportunity to have a look at these documents, if they exist, tells us they are, and I'm taking the gentleman on his word. We speak about transparency. Why would we want to kick something down the road if we're trying to be transparent? Let's look at it for the sake of 1 month. Let's make the right decision, not just a decision. Thank you.
Councillor Mallard.
Yeah, I'm going to move an amendment, which is that Council refuses consent to modify the development application in line with the recommendation on page 90. So I'm moving for the resolution to become that recommendation. If I can have a seconder, I'll speak to it.
We have a seconder for that amendment. Second it.
Thanks. Yeah. Look, we have deferred this. We have a thorough report from the staff. We have heard twice from the proponent and from the adjoining landowner about their positions on it. The documents that were referred to, the Shirley DCP, yes, it may set out the general plan for how roads are meant to be built and that they're across the 2 lots. But the whole point of what has been explained to us in this report is that this was varied. It was varied on the application of the proponent of this development. And the conditions were put on it that it would be on their land and that they would build it. And they're now coming back and asking to vary that. The DCP doesn't override the development consent that was already made. So it, as you've already said, Chair, it was applied for, it was approved with those conditions on it. It has been acted on and accepted, and as the staff have explained, that's what we've got. If there is something else which was referred to in terms of some other agreement that sits outside of the development consent, and somebody entered into that in the past, contrary to the development consent, then that's an issue in terms of why that happened at that time. But I don't think the solution is for us to try and undermine the principles of the planning system and the principle of the development that's been agreed to. So I'm generally open to deferment to work through things, but in this case, I don't see what we are going to get, because what we've been told is we'll get affidavits if we refuse it and it proceeds that way. We're being threatened with that, but we're not going to get that evidence in the next couple of weeks if we just defer this down the road. We're going to come around again and we're going to have the same debate. And I'm not seeing any additional evidence that we're going to get. I disagree with the Mayor, because the documents referred to in terms of the DCP, I understand what they say. I don't accept that they override the variation to the DCP that was embedded in this development consent. Thanks.
Councillor Duffy.
Chair, I'm going to speak against the amendment. And to the Director, Does anyone in this chamber have the legal qualifications to address the issues of what the Mayor spoke about? There's other information that could be out there. Now, I don't want this case to finish up in ICAC or in a court. That's where it could go. And if you walk away from information that could be available to you, you then become liable because you know about it. You know it could be hidden there. So I say, no, why not? And if that's the case, you can shake your head as much as you like, councillor. You can do it up and down, sideways, wherever you want to go. But don't point your finger at me. Well, you
speak through the chair. You speak through the chair.
I'm speaking to councillors.
No, you were pointing a finger just then.
I wasn't pointing my finger at him. I got pointing finger like that.
Duffy, stick to your point.
I want to finish. My finishing is the mere fact, if you neglect it, can become individually liable. Can't hide behind council's insurance. You've got to give it a full think. And if you don't know what you're doing about, you're better off walking out of the room and not voting at all. It was that.
Any other discussion on the amendment? I would just like to make a comment too, in favour of the amendment, obviously, as I seconded it. To pick up a point that that Mr. Cole raised, that it should be the adjoining landowner that cops. If council doesn't cop it, then the adjoining landowner cops the $900,000 hit. I think that's quite offensive. As Speaker said, they purchased that land. They have planned that land based on the existing consent, which again the proponent agreed to. I think we've got a great developer in the neighbouring property as well. I think to expect them to hit almost $1 million for a road that actually is not their requirement is quite frankly offensive. So, any other, Councillor Whitten?
Against the amendment, Chair, and to your point, that's exactly right. The current developer purchased the land in good faith. If you listened to my words when I moved the motion, I asked for a deferral under procedural fairness. Procedural fairness is Common Law Act, right? So the other proponent done what they did under a good faith, because potentially, and I use the word potentially, they may have acted based on authority of this council at the time. And they may have that information in writing. So as Councillor Duffy suggested, all I'm asking, as the Mayor said, is that we pull back a little bit and understand our position for a deferral. And I'll leave that with the council to consider.
I just ask a question either through you, Director, or possibly to the CEO. If this is deferred, what onus is there? Like, what power do we have to this evidence?
If I may, the solicitor asked for a deferral, so they're going to talk
yes,
to staff. They're going to talk to
no
staff.
offence, but solicitors are solicitors. So I would actually like to hear from the CEO, please.
Councillors, I'm not entirely sure what we're being accused of. I've seen no evidence.
Chair, not have been accused of anything.
Sorry, my point, Councillor, is that I've seen no evidence of what we've been accused of. I've seen no paperwork. If we were to defer this, I'm not sure what we would talk about.
So sorry, the accusation lies in the procedural fairness claim. Is that?
I don't know what Mr. Coles has in his war chest against staff. He talked about the previous general manager.
If we were to defer it,
yes, we will sit in a room with staff, and you will say to me, "What is Mr. Coles talking about?"
Yep.
And I will say he's referring to a previous agreement with the previous general manager, which I'm not privy to.
Right, but we don't have the ability to actually. I guess Councillor Duffy's saying that if we push this through, that we're potentially liable. But how can we, if we can't actually see this evidence,
My exact point.
Point of clarification to the chair. Is there any reason why we couldn't make contact and ask to provide a response within 2 weeks of what the, why he was requesting the deferral? And if there's no information forthcoming within 2 weeks, well, then we make a decision at the next meeting.
Through you, Chair, that seems like a very practical thing I could do tomorrow. Is
I try and be
contact Mr.
practical,
Cole,
Mr.
and
CEO, but
I could say, sir, a meeting, please, and I could try to get information from Mr. Cole, which I could bring back council in.
And I think at least then we've made a concerted effort to find out what those issues are. The gentleman tells us that he's got 2 documents.
Yeah.
If he wants to rely on those documents for us to make a decision, I think it's only appropriate that they be furnished for all councillors to have the opportunity to make an informed decision.
You, Chair, I would be taking a lawyer with me.
Difficult thing to do.
I would suggest that instead of 2 weeks, we'd say 1 week because...
Well, I think, to be fair, 4 weeks would be better.
4 weeks, so the next cycle.
Yeah, I would be thinking an answer back to, in order to come back to you with the next PDC would be reasonable. Give me 2 weeks to talk to Mr. Coles with my lawyer, and then I can come back with a proper answer to the next PDC.
It's at his request, through your chair, that he's asking for the deferment, so it's...
That's 2 meetings in a row he's asked for the deferral, so why not pull it?
Yeah, so
threatening. Thank you, Mr. CEO.
In your hands, yeah.
Any other discussion on the amendment? In that case, I'll put the amendment, which is as written in your papers, that we refuse application. Those in favour? All those against? Amendment's lost. So the motion now is that we defer. No other amendments?
Can I just clarify, Chair, that with that amendment to defer, that there is a clause included that we council make contact with the proponent to source those documents? Thank you.
Yes, definitely, yes.
Just clarify, so we're deferring and the CEO is going to reach out to Mr. Cole, and in 2 weeks' time that will be settled and it'll come back to the next PDC in 4 weeks' time. Yeah.
Yes.
Which sounds like an affidavit.
As long as the mover, which is Councillor Whitten, is happy to include that as part of his deferral.
Oh, sure. But that was my logical. When we defer something, it's up to the staff then to
Yeah, yeah.
talk to the opponent lawyers. That's not my role.
Okay. Alrighty, so everyone's clear on what we're doing? We're deferring for a month, and within that month, the CEO is going to contact Mr. Cole. Okay. All those in favour of that? Unanimous. Okay, item 2.4. I hope Frances took a drink out there because she's going to be getting parched. DA 18/2025 in brackets 185 Leeds Parade, the childcare facility. Recommendation is on page 136. Can I have a mover and a seconder, please? Moved by Councillor Steadman, seconded by Councillor Mallard. Any discussion? Councillor Mallard?
I'll just speak to thank the staff for the report. Good to see another childcare facility. We know how much they're needed. We know the workforce challenges are one of the big things with them as well. But yeah, a location that will hopefully work well. I know they've been contentious at times before, but this one, it's good to see it going ahead.
Thank you. Any other discussion? Those in favour, raise a hand. Unanimous. Okie dokie. Item 2.5, DA 68/2025 in brackets 185 Leeds Parade self-storage units. Now, I would like to move the recommendation, but with some some modifications to the consent. So I will tell you what those are. Redesigning of the yellow doors would be one thing, something less conspicuous. Where have we got the modification? Condition number 36. That the upright oak trees are at 8 metre centres instead of 15. That the proponent amend their landscaping plan to allow for additional visual relief and screening along Leeds Parade frontage as well as the western boundary. And having heard from the speaker tonight, I also propose that we put something in there about the fencing being more privacy or acoustic-based fencing, like ColourBond or a wooden fencing. If I can have a seconder to that. Thank you, Councillor Mallard. Any discussion?
Just a point of clarification, Chair.
Yes.
Is that something which you're seeking approval subject to the director going back to the applicant and discussing those issues?
I was seeking approval with those conditions of consent changed.
Are they they're not in the original?
It's modified. So when you look at condition 36, it has the upright oak trees at 15 metre centres. So I'm just dropping that to 8 metres. And in talking about landscaping, it's not a drastic change to.
No, the fencing would be though, like if we're talking acoustic fencing, which should come at some considerable cost, I think it would be appropriate that council go back and negotiate with the developer to find out whether they're prepared to accept that, what I would say would be a significant cost, potentially.
Well, I wasn't actually meaning specific acoustic, but even a solid fence of any type would. Sorry, Director Hodges, could you comment?
Yeah, through you, Chair, just to provide some clarity and potentially a way forward for that. Most of those points could be addressed under that condition there that Councillor McDonald's identified, which is 36. It could be taken as being some landscape buffering be provided along that western boundary there, and or fencing if required. So, looking at the site, it realistically won't either give acoustic buffering just because there's it's slightly higher than where the houses are. But having said that, it's 100 metres away or thereabouts, and so it wouldn't, for the sake of storage units and keeping in mind further through in the consent, there's a condition 48, which does restrict the use of them. The condition, the units themselves as being non-commercial, so it's just storage. So there's no manufacturing or those activities going on there. So I'm not expecting noise from those units, and therefore wouldn't need an acoustic fence. It's more about a privacy or an offsetting of the visual impacts of it. And I took that as well as Councillor McDonald's request was perhaps a comment like a condition of consent that said a dark recessive colour for the roller doors to the west, which in lieu of the yellow. It's just changing the doors on the western side, not all of them, just the western side ones, would probably address what has been raised tonight. But the other points that have been raised, so fences, trees, condition 36, and we could add an additional one in about the doors.
Sorry, just for clarification, with regards to the fence, you suggesting that we put a clause in there to
allow
the fence included?
Allow some flexibility in there, so it'll be either plantings and or a fence in there. So it could be a mixture or one or the other.
Thank you.
Any other discussion? Everyone clear on what we're proposing? Okay, so all those in favour? Unanimous, thank you. Yes, we need her back. Or, yeah, okay, I was going to actually suggest that since she's out for 2.7, we... Okay, bring her back. She's probably feeling lonely. Thank you for your patience, Councillor Kinghorn. So we are on item 2.6, Development Application DA 144/2025 in brackets 171 Dalton Street. Recommendation is on page 349. I would like to do a similar thing with this.
Happy to move it.
Finish speaking, please, Councillor. I was going to do a similar thing with this and do slight modifications to the proposed conditions, which are, given that it's on a fairly busy at times intersection with McLaughlin Street and Dalton, there doesn't appear to be a construction management plan as part of the applicant's paperwork. So I would propose in there that we modify the conditions of consent that they need to submit a construction management plan.
Point of order, Madam Chair. I move the resolution. I said I'll move the resolution.
I was still speaking, Councillor Duffy. I am the chair of
the resolution.
No, I was still speaking. You spoke over me.
I'm not going to question your ability to run a meeting, but I moved the resolution, and the rules that we've changed these rules in this chamber, where we used to stand up, we said you had to move. Now we sit down and just speak up when we like and where we like. I moved the resolution.
Councillor Duffy, sit down, and I will get guidance from the governance. I beg your pardon. I have precedence. I had started to say I was moving it with changes. Thank you. Right. So my modification to the consent is that prior to the issue of the construction certificate, that the applicant provide a construction management plan because of that, just to make sure that traffic at that intersection isn't too badly affected. And the second one was a modification to their amended landscape plan because they're choosing Manchurian pears, which will, considering this is a very exciting development, having the master builders have a training facility in Orange. This is a huge coup for the community. Manchurian pears are horrid species that the slightest gust they snap and fall over, and arborists love them. I think for a training facility of such a, prominent business, I think we could do something better than Manchurian pears. That's my reasoning. Do I have a seconder? Thank you, Councillor Ruddy. Any discussion?
Just a point of clarification.
Sure.
Can I ask why a construction management plan wasn't provided in the first place? And
oh, sorry, I thought you said and. I was waiting for something else. Director Hodges, could you?
Through you, Chair, I'm not sure why it wasn't pulled up. It's pretty reasonable. We don't ask them on a lot of developments, but it's certainly, I would agree that it's a fairly busy intersection. So that would control things like where do tradesmen park during construction. So given it's quite a lot of traffic turning and going through and the shopping centre across the road and childcare centre, it's not inappropriate. We've asked for them on other bigger developments in town before. So.
Thank you. I'm just wondering, just a point of clarification, whether it's the right of council to tell a developer what trees to plant in their garden. I mean, I've got gardens at home. I've got roses, I've got azaleas, I've got all sorts of different things. I don't think it's the right of council to tell a developer what type of trees they want to plant there unless there is a obnoxious tree like a hawthorn or something like that. I think we should be trying to work with these people. Bushes and trees are a matter of preference. I think we should have, if there's an issue with them, why they chose that or why they shouldn't have them. I'm not quite sure that should be the subject to the DA that they have a certain type of tree. Is there a reason why they can't have the trees they want, Director?
I'll let the Director answer in a second. I'm not saying they're not allowed to. I'm just saying their preference would be something other than a Manchurian pear. Please, Director Hodges.
Chair, just thinking about a solution as well that we could put some flexibility into the condition on this one, which would be, we've certainly used Manchurian pears elsewhere in town and they do snap off as There's been, as in when there's a bit of a windstorm as they get older. The landscape plan has been reviewed by our city presentation manager and no objection to it. However, you could add to the condition that just it is almost like an advisory note to say the concern is raised about the use of a Manchurian pear, and they might want to review the use of that particular species.
So rather than saying don't use it, we could say, can you please reconsider?
Yeah, the master builders are very good. Been historically good for us to deal with on this site, so I think that would be open.
Resolve your concern?
Not really, because we're fighting with our own horticulturist who says that they're able to be planted, and we're not qualified to do that. So we're saying to our own people, give us the answer we want rather than their professional opinions. But I did take the director's point. You probably could do that, but I don't think it's smart thinking, in my own opinion, because we're taking a stance against somebody who's given a professional opinion as to what type of. They're saying they're allowed, and they're quite happy with them. We've got them around other places in town. I don't think it's up to us as council to tell people what type of bushes they should be planting in there if they're able to be planted there. And we have qualified staff who give that opinion. They've given it. They said it's allowable. Let's move on. Thank you.
Any other discussion?
Just to be done with this and stop talking about trees. Move the motion.
Are you moving that the motion be put?
Yes. Yeah, let's do that.
Those in favour?
Have a clarification of what the motion now is.
The motion is as printed with slight modification to the conditions of consent to require the applicant to submit prior to the issue of a construction certificate that they submit a construction management plan and have a discussion around for maybe thinking of something other than a Manchurian pear.
Can I just have a question, Chair, through you, if I may? So why has it gotten this far and we've now got to send it back? The last one we were talking about, we're just kicking it down the road again. But this should have come to us with all this information. And it just seems like we're looking for ways to say no instead of looking for ways to be more progressive and say yes. I'm confused.
We're not. The proposal is not to say no.
No, but my question is, why did the traffic modification not, why did that not go back to them before this came before us at council?
Director?
Through you, Chair, operationally we all driveway crossings, so road opening permits are required prior to the issue of construction certificate. So our engineers probably would have managed it under that, but it's actually, because this is such a prominent site and very tight, it's a small site, deliveries or parking of trades and probably are quite important for that area. So I have no objection to that. I think it's quite a minor issue in the whole scheme of things. It won't take them much to prepare because they'd be using an accredited traffic certifier with the road opening permit anyway. And
I understand that. But my question is, why was it not done prior to this coming before us at council? Like, why are we now going back when you're aware that probably should have done it?
I'd say it was just an oversight.
Thank you.
Councillor Mallard.
Thanks, yeah. Very happy to...
Sorry, procedurally, Councillor Ruddy did ask that we put the motion, so apologies, Councillor Mallard. Are we clear on what the motion is now? Okay. All those in favour? No? Against? Councillor Duffy is against. Thank you. Apologies, Councillor Mallard. Apologies, Councillor Radio. Right. 2.7. Thank you, Francis. Sorry, Councillor Kinghorn.
I'm going to vote forward it.
Okay, councillors, we've got item 2.7, which is a draft Redmond Place precinct DCP, and the recommendation on page 409 is that we place this draft on public exhibition
Happy
for a
to
period
move
of
the
28 days.
recommendation.
Moved by Councillor Mallard, seconded by Councillor Power. Any discussion? Councillor Mallard.
I feel like we shouldn't have no discussion on something where I know staff have put in a huge amount of work, and in collaboration with Landcom, this development is continuing to move forward, which is great. It's going to deliver at least some affordable housing. We know there's a lot more to do, and this can't be the only thing council is doing. It's going out on exhibition. Encourage everyone to have a look at it. I think there's a lot of great stuff in there in terms of making this a really quality area. We've talked about DCPs a bit in this meeting already. And they can definitely set the parameters to ensure that the developments are going to be as high quality as possible in terms of getting outcomes for people, for sustainability, for public amenity. And encourage everyone to take a look at it and see if there are ways that you think it can be made even better.
Thank you. Councillor Power.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I want to echo Councillor Mallard's thoughts too. I'm really excited about as each one of these reports come up, and now this is going on public exhibition. This is a fantastic opportunity for Orange. When you look at the components of the affordable housing, it's just something very special, and I think as we continuously push it out in the community, get feedback in relation to this here, it really sets up something for the future, especially with shortage of housing, 330 homes. Mate, it's absolutely amazing. So congratulations to both Landcom and Orange City Council staff. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Well said, Councillor. Thank you. Any other discussion? The motion, all those in favour? Unanimous, thank you. Councillors, that closes or concludes the Planning and Development Committee meeting, with the time being 1 minute past 8, and I call on Councillor Mallard to conduct the environmental sustainability. Thanks.
What are we on? Councillor.
Thank you, Councillor McDonnell. No longer chair.
Or mayor.
I will open the Environmental Sustainability Policy Committee meeting on the 1st of July 2025, with the time being 8:03 p.m. Item 1.1, declarations of interest. I didn't hear any earlier, but does anyone have any interest to declare? There being none, we will move on to item 2.1, minutes of the Environmental Sustainability Community Committee meeting of the 6th of June 2025. The recommendation is there on page 5. Can I have a mover and a seconder? Councillor McDonnell and Councillor Ruddy. Is there any discussion on this item? Mr. CEO.
Chair, can I take the rare opportunity to make a comment and congratulate you and the ESCI committee, and indeed my staff, for the Electrify Orange.
You read my mind.
Which I believe had amazing attendance. Well over 100 people, a lot of older people who were very interested in that event, and it went down really, really well. And we've had so much good feedback. So I just wanted to say that while we're on the topic of
Thank you. Yep, totally agreed. I was going to comment on the same thing. It was mentioned in my Chair's report on page 7 in the minutes there that the event was coming up. It was fantastic. Like, we had 160 registrations. The day was shocking. There was ice falling out of the sky, so I thought we would struggle. But yeah, to get about 120 people showed up is fantastic. And yeah, lots of engagement in what people can do to make changes that help save them money, make their home more comfortable, make them, tackle emissions as well, and wanted to thank, yes, from the staff, particularly Council Sustainability Project Officer Eleanor Pratton did a huge amount of work pulling it together. The rest of the council staff who were involved as well. Callum Harvey Scholes from Rewiring Australia, who hosted the event. Granton Smith, local resident. Karina Rafalov from Earthy House, Michael Dugan from Rapid Amp Electrical, and Roger Burrell from Geofeet Home Energy Assessments. It was just a really interesting panel with a whole mix of different things, everything from, insulation and draft sealing through to batteries and virtual power plants and all sorts of other things. So it was a fantastic event. I know a lot of councillors were away in Canberra, which was unfortunate, but it was really a great event. The other thing, I'll come to you in a second, Councillor Steadman, just while I'm speaking, that I wanted to note was in this Environmental Sustainability Community Committee meeting that the minutes are coming from. We did have another question from a community member who was saying that according to their research, the closest place you could go to recycle solar panels was Adelaide, I think. It was good to have staff there. It's one of the things I love about our community committees is that we're able to get information straight away and get accurate information, which reinforced as we had a report on a question from the Mayor. Come back to our last meeting that, yes, you can recycle solar panels at Ophir Road. I understand, contrary to what was in that last report, they're not going to the company down at Cootamundra now. They're going to somewhere out at the Parks Activation Precinct, but they're still being recycled. The fantastic news, 98% of the materials from the panels are recycled out of that process. So yeah, it's a great service that we offer. It's one that I know there are people who were early adopters, some of those same people probably who were at the Electrify Your Home event last week who are getting to the point where they do have to think about replacing their solar panels. So really good to make sure we're all informed, both us as councillors, and that we can get that out into the community that despite what misinformation goes around, solar panels can be recycled and you can do it right now through Orange's Waste Services. Thanks. Councillor Steadman.
Thank you, Chair. Just wanted to congratulate you on it and suggest that we kind of kick that off a bit more often. I registered before realising I couldn't attend and I was quite annoyed at both those things. And of course the recycling and the renewable possibilities for the solar panels is huge, but the more of this we do, the better informed we become as a community. So if we can do that sort of stuff, keep filtering that information out, that'd be fantastic.
Yep, I think you can look forward to that. I know Council's sustainability team are doing the work on that. There's a website with fact sheets up now as well. So community engagement and leadership is one of the key tasks coming out of this term. And I know in the delivery program we adopted last month as well that we've got a community climate management plan to work on as well. And the ESCI, as the minutes show, we've got a climate action working party that hopefully we had to postpone last Friday. We're hopefully getting together this Friday to start planning what can we do to try and work with the staff to push things as much as we can to get that word out and have those conversations keep on rolling. Thanks. Mayor?
You said that 98% of the solar panel can be recycled. I'm just wondering what 2% consists of. If you can't be recycled, what is that 2% and where does it go?
Unless one of the staff has an answer, have to take that on notice.
Take it on notice, turn it on plastic or something.
There are, if I may, there are organisations down in Australia that do 100%. It's the oils. The plastics, they revert back into oil to their oils to run the processes of the. Not sure if that's our.
Yep. Thanks. Yeah. We can see if we can get that information, but yep, we're getting pretty close to 100% circularity on that. Is certainly much better than a lot of what people assert out there.
And if I may, Chair, this will be relevant when you process the two solar farm DAs that come before you.
Thank you. Any other discussion on those minutes? Being none, I'll put the motion. All in favour? Anyone against? Carried. Okay, we will go to item 2.2, the minutes of the Parks, Trees and Waterways Community Committee of the 11th of June 2025. There's a recommendation on page 27. Can I have a mover? And moved by Councillor Greenhalgh and a seconder, Councillor Peterson.
I'd like
Any
to
discussion
move an
on this?
amendment.
Yep, Councillor McDonald.
So my amendment would be that the recommendation is actually what the committee put up. So the wording of the recommendation has 1, that acknowledge reports, blah, blah, blah. The 2 minutes, with the exception of resolution 3.1.2 be adopted and that resolution 3.1.2 be amended. And I will speak to that if I can have a seconder.
Councillor Ruddy seconding.
Okay, so this goes back a little way, so bear with me. So back on the 21st of March 2024, the Parks, Trees and Waterways Community Committee put forward a recommendation that, quote, the city presentation budget be increased to allow for an additional street tree crew, end quote. This recommendation and that meeting's minutes came to this chamber for adoption at the council meeting of the 7th of May 2024. The recommendation in those papers on the 7th of May included, quote, that the city presentation budget be increased to allow for an additional street tree crew, end quote. Council adopted the recommendation in full without any amendment. At some point between the adoption at that council meeting on the 7th of May and when the minutes were developed and presented to us on the 21st of May, the adopted resolution was edited. I don't know by whom and I don't know why, and I'm not here to point fingers, but there was clearly a deliberate edit which fundamentally changed the adopted recommendation. So instead of the adopted, quote, city presentation budget be increased to allow for an additional street tree crew, what materialised as something that was resolved by council, which was never resolved, stated that the city presentation budget increased to allow for an additional street tree crew be considered during the budget process. Now, this addition fundamentally changed the adopted resolution. This was done without the knowledge of the councillors. Now, I'm not attacking staff, but this is more than just a minor typo. This was clearly deliberately inserted somehow because it completely changed the adopted motion from an agreed certainty to a mere possibility. So yes, when the minutes came up at the 21st of May 2024 meeting, when those minutes were adopted, we should have picked it up there, but I would also argue that we shouldn't have to go through word for word with a fine-tooth comb to see if an adopted resolution has been reworded or fundamentally changed without our knowledge. Unfortunately, I did not pick this up at the time, but it does not change the fact that what was adopted by council is not what was in the minutes. Since then, I've had a bit of back and forth with staff as to why the 24-25 budget failed to include this item. And I was also receiving quite regular feedback from the Parks, Trees and Waterways Community Committee members as to why it hadn't been actioned. None of that back and forth with staff answered the question about why it wasn't included when I knew it had been a resolution of council. So I did a deep dive into the minutes of the meetings, as well as reviewing the live stream footage of the council meeting of the 7th of May. And in the timestamp, it's 7:25 p.m. when we're discussing this item. There was no proposed change in the discussion at that meeting to the Parks, Trees and Waterways Community Committee recommendation. No change was adopted. The recommendation was unanimously adopted by council as written in the papers for that meeting. So I've since presented this information to council staff, and council's governance team has since amended the incorrect minutes to reflect the actual adopted resolution. However, resolution made by council in May 2024 is still yet to be acted on. The city presentation budget has not been increased to allow for an additional street tree crew. Now, I thank the community members of the Parks, Trees and Waterways Community Committee because some of them are understandably quite irate. Some are just frustrated, some are confused. Our community committees are a vital part of council's connection to the Orange community, and the time and energy that our community members put into these has to always be respected. Therefore, a recommendation put up by a community committee, then adopted by council, must never be altered in this way, the way this one was. So, Parks, Trees and Waterways Community Committee and I as Chair insist, as written in the minutes, that this budget item be included in the first quarterly review of our current adopted budget. That is the big backstory as to why I have a problem with the recommendation as written. And there still has been my major problem with it is that point 3 essentially is seeking permission to do exactly what was done months ago when the minutes were fiddled with. So that's I think it needs to be included. It's somehow someone stuffed up somewhere. It was a resolution of council. I get that we're trying to have a balanced budget, but
are you finished?
But sorry, that was a pregnant but. That was like a but ... I'd have nothing.
Okay.
No, I shouldn't. I'm not speaking.
Yeah.
Take a question from Councillor Mileto.
I'm going to move an amendment that...
Foreshadowed amendment?
We're already debating. So for clarity, Councillor Greenhalgh moved the recommendation. Councillor McDonnell has now moved an amendment. So we are now debating an amendment. So we can't have another amendment until we deal with this one, but you can foreshadow an amendment right now.
Yeah, foreshadow amendment.
We've got...
You can indicate what your foreshadowed amendment is.
My foreshadow amendment would be to defer that item that you're referring to on the basis that in the process of recruiting a new CEO, and I don't think it would be appropriate, given that that new CEO would have the opportunity to review our finances, and with the current budget in the next quarter, there is capacity to engage another person to do the work which you're suggesting. I'm not quite sure whether we can make that decision at this point in time because the budget has already been set for the next period of time. So I just think that, whilst I understand the urgency from the committee, I think that there's an opportunity to defer it for 3 months whilst the new CEO gets his feet under the desk and make a decision then.
All right. So thanks, Mayor. Just before I go to the CEO, so just for everyone's clarity procedurally where we're at. So as I explained, we've got motion was moved, an amendment was moved. That means we go to debate on the amendment. The Mayor has indicated a foreshadowed amendment. We will debate and deal with that after we have dealt with the amendment that has been moved.
Sorry, Chair, I just want a clarification of what the amendment is. I know it's,
so the amendment,
it's number 3.
So strike point 3 of the written recommendation and change point 2 to remove with the exception of resolution 3.1.2 from its meeting because
at the minutes. Got you.
We shouldn't be editing the resolutions of a community committee.
The adopt. I got you. Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Chair.
All right, so we're debating the amendment. Councillor Peterson.
I'm happy to stay with the amendment. Do note that with the factors 3.9, if funds we need to identify the source of the funds unless it's right in the budget. Otherwise, a deferral is required to source the funds.
I just ask for clarification on the number of $400,000.
$150,000 for staff plus an estimate.
You are saying, in effect, for the rest of the councillors, just on the run here a bit, that if the amendment is adopted, that $400,000, which will be capital cost of $150? No, that's an operational $400,000. It would be a capital of 150, 250 recurrent every year, and 150 is would be added to the budget at the next quarter. That is the implication of number 2. Not considered, added. Sorry, thank you, Chair.
Thanks,
Can I-
Councillor Ruddy.
Thank you. Can I just ask a question? There's a few of us that weren't here back then. Why do we need another street tree crew? Like, is that something that's been identified operationally by council, or is it just the committee? What are they doing that the current crew isn't doing that justifies $1 million?
I'll see if Councillor McDonnell, as chair of that committee, wants to speak about it.
I'm happy to speak to it. Look, the committee in the last term of council did a lot of work with staff and consultants on the urban forest strategy that was drafted and adopted. Part of that and the discussions with staff around resourcing and the growing nature, like the growing city, and we're now wanting to plant more trees. This was something that was agreed on in that committee that would be of benefit to council and therefore benefit to the community. And it was adopted unanimously with these figures.
Thanks. Anything else, Councillor Ruddy? Councillor Duffy?
Chair, what's the total cost of the adjustment to the budget?
So through the Chair, I'll read that out again. If the amendment is adopted, there would be a $150,000 capital cost and a $250,000 recurrent cost for staff.
Question, Councillor Peterson?
I appreciate I've already spoken once.
You can ask a question.
Last question. If cactus coming from have to be made.
Look, if I may, the problem here is, I will admit that there was a procedural error, call it what you like, at the time. I don't believe council's ever really discussed the merits of the extra tree crew. It never came to council, is the councillor's point. It never came in the form where council could fully discuss it. We never had a debate over the merits of adding a tree crew to the budget.
It was a standalone recommendation in those, like it was.
I know it came from a. Sorry, Chair. It came from a community committee that the committee thought it was a wonderful idea, but the full council has never had an opportunity to discuss the merits of the committee's idea.
But they did.
But no, it just passed.
Have you watched the meeting? Because there was discussion on items on that agenda.
I know, but did the full council I'm talking to now have the opportunity to talk about it? Because I'm hearing a council that is now asking questions. I'm asking a rhetorical question. The voting of $400,000 appears to be something the council is now asking about the merits of it.
So my point would be that was voted for unanimously
it might have been
time,
voted for, but
and it's the job it's the job of those councillors at the time to be aware of what they're voting for.
I'm talking process, not merit. Okay.
Well,
and I was asked a question, councillor, and I'm just trying to answer it. It appears to me a situation exists where the merits of the 400 haven't been discussed, and a process problem occurred. I'm being asked questions, I'm being asked what's good of the 400. I can't answer. You can, you're the chair.
Councillor Whitten.
Thank you, Chair. And I suppose I'll go speaking for the amendment, right? Because technically what Councillor McDonnell is saying is that it was ratified by this council, right? And this is why councillors need to read their committee meeting minutes, because there are recommendations from the committees that come up to the full council that need ratifying. The thing that hasn't been dealt with is that it's never been ratified in the budget. Maybe, of course you're dead right, it is a resolution of this council. Doesn't matter which council, it's on the books. and then it now needs to be discussed. Now needs to be deferred to our finance chairman. You put the pressure on him now. So from one committee to another needs to be referred to the finance committee to now allocate in the next budget, the next review, relevant funds to, and that's when we would discuss the relevancy of a new tree team, tree committee, tree group.
Next issue.
Yeah.
I see the council.
It's also operational too.
Technically, Councillor McDonald's got us on ice, right? Procedurally.
A point of clarification. Is that another amendment on top of the...
Okay. Chair, perhaps I should
I
clarify.
wasn't moving it.
I clarify? The original motion is the 1, 2, 3 from Councillor Greenhouse. The amendment we're discussing is that the minutes, the full minutes, just go straight through. Number 3 is dropped. 2 is amended.
Yes, correct.
Councillor, the Mayor has a foreshadowed amendment is to defer the lot to the presence of a new CEO.
Yes.
So call it 2 months from now.
Okay. We're still debating the amendment at the moment.
Understand that?
Councillor Kinghorn.
Yeah. So if this was something that was adopted by Council in May last year, we would have then assumed that it would have been in the budget last year.
Mm-hmm.
So I wouldn't have ever thought about it since then. This year, I would like to have a balanced budget. So I'm actually not going to vote for the amendment. I'm going to vote for the resolution as printed, because in the context of this year, it's different. So I agree that it hasn't been done properly, and I understand that, but I certainly wouldn't have followed it up to see if everything that's been resolved to go into the budget is in the budget. You just assume that if it's been passed, then that's what happens, and that hasn't happened. So, but in the context of this year, I won't be supporting the amendment.
Any other speakers? Right. I'll just speak to say I'll support the amendment. I thank Councillor McDonald for explaining the situation. So it's mapped out on page 29. That's the recommendation that we're actually proposing be adopted there, and it does set out the timeline that Councillor McDonald goes through. It did come to a policy committee meeting, which is a meeting of the full council, so councillors did have the information and the opportunity to debate it. I note Councillor Witten's points in that regard. I think when we went through the budget this year, Councillor Peterson asked some questions about some costs on trees that were in there, and it revealed that for people who aren't aware of it, you know, trees are expensive, not because it's not just the trees, it's all the work getting them in the ground and maintaining them. And trees are part of the lifeblood and character of our city. We need, as we grow, to be recognising that the scale of the work that's going to be involved is increasing. I do hear pretty regularly from people that, you know, they feel like trees aren't being maintained adequately and that more work would be useful. And I know that's what the community committee members brought this up for. So that's why I'm going to support the amendment. Okay. So if there are no further speakers.
Yep. Was there a time through you to the CEO, that resolution that said move forward with an additional tree team? Was there a time frame given when we look at that? Was it in that financial year or maybe one day?
So the resolution was that the city presentation budget be increased to allow for an additional street tree crew. There was no time limit. It was no year-based thing. It was just that it be increased. And I guess, before you put it to the vote, can I close that on
my understanding is that there's not a closing to debate on an amendment.
Okay, that's okay.
More questions, because I'm not sure.
You can ask questions.
So if this amendment is successful, does that mean that automatically goes into the review when we do the budget review, or will it be discussed again when we do the review? The quarterly review.
Budget.
My intention is that it goes in there.
Just is in.
Because
So
it was
this
supposed to
goes
have been
through
there
that
12
too.
months
Okay.
ago. So
The budget at the quarterly.
Yep.
Staff have to then, sorry, Chair, through you, where staff have to then find out where we can get.
Okay, and so Councillor Peterson mentioned, finding out where that's coming from and getting a report on that. Is that something that would still happen?
Yeah, well, we'll have to, at the quarterly review, we would have to say, as instructed, new tree crew is being assembled and we will find the 400 from following sources.
And once
then
that's
you have to
done.
ratify that.
So we then approve that again.
You approve the source of the funding.
Right. Okay.
And
Clarification. So what you're saying, Mr.
I had Councillor Greenhalgh first.
Thank you. So I've just got a question around transparency. I don't like the fact that we're going back and we're editing minutes to make it fixed. Like, I know it needs to be fixed because that was what we did. But if we've got to look back and visit this again, how do we see what the original minutes were? Like, do we not keep the original minutes and then put a note that, as of this meeting, it was picked up that was an error? Like, because it's too messy.
We have a record now of what has occurred.
But like, say in 5 years' time, if Councillor McDonald was to go back and look at the original minutes again, are they going to say, are they going to read that it was correct?
No, there'll be a paper trail that says, sorry, Chair, there'll be a paper trail that tells this story.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Make no mistake, this story will be well written.
Councillor Duffy.
Questions to the CEO. Questions. Well, first one is that now we're putting things back in the budget.
Oh, it would appear so.
150,000 plus whatever it is. And the other question is, with why are we doing it? Can we add other things into the budget as well as we go along?
Well,
because we've already done our IP&R. We voted last time on the budget.
Absolutely,
Can we add
you
things in
did.
IP&R as we go along?
As Councillor Whitten, through you, Chair, often tells me you can do whatever you like.
Correct.
And tonight, the Chair is facilitating an action, which we'll see potentially if this amendment gets up, like off Whitlam, $400,000 added to the budget. Indeed, Councillor, you can do that, whatever you want in this chamber, I'm told often, if you stick to the process. Through motions, through logic, and through offsets. If you want to keep a balanced budget, through offsets. As the finance crew always tell us, through offsets. But keep a balanced budget.
Ben Chifley said, you can be the best orator in the rail. If you haven't got the numbers, it's worthless.
I ask another question? I know I'm being annoying, but I really need to understand this because it's
No, that's right. And
$400,000.
you can ask questions.
If we get to this quarterly review and the staff have said we found where to find 400,000, but we don't like that, what is the result of that then? They have to find somewhere else to find it from until we find somewhere. It's a lot of money and it's really going to hurt something else, and that's my concern.
And before you ask that as a supplement, but before I go to the CEO, as a supplementary to that question, if something is presented in the budget review saying this is what setting the street tree crew would cost, there is the option, isn't there, for council in the quarterly budget review then to resolve not to proceed with the street tree?
Well, Mr. Chair, there's a 3-month rule that says you can't back out. So if today on the 1st of July you vote for the amendment, which is to put it in, you have to wait 3 months to take it out. So the quarterly review will be some 3 months from here-ish. So that hopefully that answers part of that question. And the other part of this is that we won't just wake up and go and find 400. Recruiting takes quite a while. We might not buy the kit for some time. So it won't just be a straight bang 400. We have to really think this through as staff. To keep a balanced budget, we might not propose to you at the quarterly review that we do this instantly. We might come at this using apprentices, or we might just have a good long think about how we do the 400. That makes any.
Are there any other questions or anyone who hasn't spoken on the amendment already who wants to speak?
To answer Councillor Ruddy's call, if you vote for it tonight, you won't be able to back it out in your quarterly review, given the timing.
Okay, there being no other speakers, I'm going to put the amendment. So if we're clear, this is the amendment as moved by Councillor McDonald. All in favour? And against? So that amendment is lost. So we now have a foreshadowed amendment from the Mayor. Would you like to move your amendment now?
Yes, I would, if I can get a seconder.
Councillor Peterson, so...
The whole matter be deferred until such time as we employ a new CEO and look at the whole issue overall.
Okay, so we've got that amendment now. So the original motion is still as moved by Councillor Greenhalgh to the recommendation that appeared in the papers. We've now got that amendment as explained by the Mayor, seconded by Councillor Peterson. Do I have speakers on that amendment? Councillor McDonald.
Thank you. Look, I'm happy to support the amendment. I guess my whole goal with this is to shine light on the fact that this has been a major, excuse the French, but cock up. That 400,000 should have been in last year's budget for whatever reason. Someone decided to not make that a requirement. I guess my main question is, if we defer this, and as I said, I'm happy to support that, I actually would really like to have some sort of, what Councillor Greenhalgh was talking about, transparency, some sort of understanding of how the hell this happened to begin with, because 400,000, it's a massive hit. And I get that, and I wasn't actually thinking that everyone would quite happily whack that into the budget anyway. But I mean, if it was $5,000, $10,000, maybe it's not quite such a significant thing. But to have such a significant item be adopted unanimously by council, and then for whatever reason changed without our knowledge and never acted on, I would really like to know how that happened, and whether or not us councillors find out who and what. I would like to know that staff have done some sort of internal investigation as to WTF, and so that this can't happen again. So that would be my request, is that at some point, or part of the deferral maybe, it includes an internal review. And like I said, we don't need to know the results of that necessarily, but I would like to know that it has been done and that changes have been made to ensure that that never happens again. Because as I said, $400,000, it's a massive cock up.
Yep. Okay, yeah. CEO is taking it on board.
Thank you.
Any other speakers? Councillor Duffy.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. My question is, when the report came to council, did it have $400,000 in bells that what it was going to cost us? Having in mind that I want to compare it with only the $2 million that we only got in unrestricted reserves, and how long was this free crew going to be lasting for? There were the questions. Did they come in front of council?
I can't recall whether a costing came with the street crew. Sorry, Chair.
I can't remember whether the actual costing was there, but it was a specific item that said.
I recall the words "a tree crew."
Would have been your opportunity to ask the question.
It was ratified.
Exactly.
On the night. So the director recalls answering a question about costing on the night.
So you weren't given information.
Thanks. Councillor Kinghorn.
Thank you. I'm actually not going to support this amendment either. I'm again just going to stick with the original one, and I would like to see it come in the budget discussions for next year.
Noting, if the original motion is passed, my understanding is that it will be considered in the first quarterly review for this year.
Considered, which means that's what happened last time when it came up at the briefing that we had, and the word was considered, therefore we didn't do it. We considered it, so that's what will happen. They'll consider it and then not do it. That's fine.
All right.
Good question.
Yep.
Probably through you to the CEO or maybe even governance. I've raised it before. My concern is this thing about point 3 where it says that resolution be amended. What is the... I mean, is there another... Because I get the council, this chamber doesn't have to adopt what committees recommend. No. I understand that. However, I don't seem to think that it's okay to then resolve that we amend a resolution rather than, maybe we note it rather than acting on it. I've just got a big problem with that, amending a resolution of another committee
through you, Chair,
that has already been adopted.
And I have a crack at explaining this. Do you recall when I entered the Trees and Waterways Committee the other night?
And I put you in the hot seat on this?
I'm responsible for the wording of 3 because we had a discussion about having the committee pushing this to the quarterly review. That's why I amended it to read as such.
Okay, but procedurally wise,
procedurally, the cover report, staff can take a cover report, take the minutes of a committee, put it into form. Staff think appropriate.
Okay.
From a community committee. That's done all the time. So I'll take an ESCI report and I'll mould it to what I think suits the council. We do that all the time.
Yep.
To try to get the process right. So in this case, I've taken the community minutes. I've said, okay, after that discussion,
I guess I don't have a problem with that. Maybe I'm just getting stuck on it, but it's that we are amending a resolution. I don't know whether there's better language to use around that.
I see your point.
I just feel like, I think there should be better language. I don't know what that language is, but I feel like there should be better language.
Yeah, is it there's maybe a blurring there because it sounds like amending the minutes when...
Yes.
Yeah,
yes.
It's not clear that it's adopting a different recommendation from what, or a different resolution from what was recommended.
I see your point.
Yep. Okay. Thank you.
I'll take that on board. Thank you.
Councillor Duffy.
Thank you, Mr Chair. I'm going to speak against the amendment, mainly because $400,000 is a massive amount of money, and it basically nearly is half the amount of money that we need to finish the planetarium. So we can open both the planetarium and the conservatorium together instead of only a lot of money to go through. And I think I already adopted the budget, so I think I'm going to stick with that.
Other speakers? All right, I'll speak in support of the amendment then. Yeah, I'm comfortable with us deferring it given the previous amendment wasn't successful. Yeah, I think we'll see when we have a new CEO in place, we can revisit this and look at what can be done. I'll reiterate, yes, trees are expensive. Trees are extremely important to our city. They're our character, and it's critical that we find ways to make sure that we're looking after things, and that as we're developing new areas and seeing the new housing that we desperately need, that we're also giving people areas that have great amenity that also provides biodiversity corridors as well. So we need these things. Any other speakers on this amendment? All right, so I will put the amendment now. All in favour? Eight. Against? 2, 3, 4. I declare the amendment carried. The amendment now becomes the motion. Anyone who hasn't spoken on the motion who wants to say anything further, or I'll put the motion now. Did you want
I'm anticipating.
Sorry. Councillor Greenhound is the mover, so you don't want to close debate at all? No worries. All right, I will put the motion. All in favour? Anyone against? Carried unanimously. Thank you, councillors. That concludes the Environmental Sustainability Policy Committee meeting, with the time being 8:45 p.m. Along Councillor Peterson to conduct the Finance Policy Committee.
Bottles of water.
Thank you, Councillor Mallard. I'd like to open the Finance Policy Committee meeting on the 1st of July, with the time being 20:45. Item 1.1, in terms of declarations of interest, we have had declaration of interest on 2.1.1 from Councillor Whitten, 2.1.3 from Councillor Greenhow and Power. Any further declarations of interest? Oh, fantastic. Well, then I'll move on to items 2.1, the small donations, request for donations, a recommendation on page 6. Part 1, recommending the items be heard and voted on in seriatim. Do I have a mover for that? Thank Councillor Greenhow, second by Councillor Ruddy. Put the motion, all for. Any against? We'll now deal with the items in part 2 separately and start with 2.1.1 to donate $2,500 to the Orange Uniting Church to contribute to the costs serving hot takeaway meals.
I'll move that we donate $5,000.
Right, that's seconded by Councillor Power. So that was the motion. Do I have anyone speaking on the motion? Yes, Councillor Mallard.
Thanks, Chair. And yeah, I know we often end up in a debate in these things about whether things comply with policy, and I've said before, I generally believe we need to hold to policy, or we should aim to, but I think there are always cases come along where we will find that the policy doesn't quite suit what we believe is the right outcome in terms of council and in terms of the community. I think the work that the Uniting Church does in providing this hot food service is really significant. Reverend Cunningham explained it earlier on. They're helping some of the most vulnerable people in our community. It's great. We've seen some other services coming through providing support for people who are homeless or at risk of homelessness recently, like Orange Sky. And I know Councillor Ruddy drew our attention to the great info about what the Central West Libraries are doing at the moment, as well with providing that bathing opportunity as well. So yeah, I think the number of meals that the church is able to get out. I know they've had other generous assistance as well. I think providing the equivalent of 2 donations that we would give to something like a sporting event or things like that. I think it's a small price to pay for making a big difference in the community. I wish the social impact grants that we had last year had a funding source that we could be doing them every year, but for the moment, yeah, I'd support this little variation. Thanks.
It's Councillor Power.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm definitely going to be supporting the amendment on this here with the funds. As what many people do know, I used to be a minister. When it comes to those who attend your church on Sunday, they give generously into the into the offering bag as it goes around. And when he mentioned $26,000, I thought, wow, that is a huge amount of money when it comes to an NGO, not-for-profit. And I do appreciate the Reverend actually speaking about that. He's been receiving some funds, so that is fantastic. But when it comes to the people of Orange, when we look at the amount of people that have been going through that need that opportunity to go there, for his reflection in relation to people coming back frequently. I actually run a coffee shop and then an outlet in the church that I run here in Orange, and there's always people out there, unfortunately, that do it tough sometimes, and they come to seeking out funds. We try not to actually give cash over the top, but more than happy to try and give them a meal or something warm. So I'm definitely going to be supporting the amendment of the 5,000. Thank you, sir.
Any further discussion, Councillor Greenhow?
Thank you, Councillor Peterson. Yeah, look, I'm really happy to support this. It's 5 weeks worth of food. And, you know, we have gone against policy previously. And with the cost of living, I think the least we can do is offer people doing it tough in our community something warm to eat during winter. Thank you.
Councillor Ruddy.
I'll just be quick. I did have quite a lot to say, but Andrew did an amazing job of taking everything I had from me, which is fine. I think that this is a really valuable cause. Like he said, feeds nearly 150 people a week. One thing that he didn't mention was that they have meals in the freezer, and throughout the week when people are attending the church and they're hungry or they're homeless or whatever, they've got frozen meals that they're also handing out to people throughout the week as well. So it's no small effort. I spoke to Andrew and a gentleman named Bob at the church in great lengths yesterday about the program, and they're doing incredible things. And I think I often talk about how our job on council is a lot more than roads, rates and rubbish. And, you know, if our community's hurting, that we need to make sure that we're doing what we can to support them. And there's people out there that are cold and hungry. So I absolutely support this, and I think that we all need to get behind the work that they're doing.
Yeah, further discussion? Being none, thank you. I'll put the motion. All for? Any against? Declare that as carried. Very well. So 2.2 is to donate $1,250 to the Duntree League Golf Club to contribute to the cost of the general running of the tournament, hospitality and prize money. That's moved by Councillor McDonald.
Can I move that we do 1,120? I know it's only $130 shy. My reasoning mainly is because we've got less than 90,000 to last us 12 months, and when you look at the applicant's paperwork, they're like, it's only $130, but it's $130 over what would balance their costs versus their funding. So I would suggest 1,120 would, so that they break even.
Well,
because we're not here to help people make profits with these.
Moved by Councillor McDonald. Do I have a seconder for what she has moved? Seconded by Councillor Mallard. Any discussion on this item, standing at $1,120? There's no discussion. I will put the motion. All those in favour? Any against? Sorry, I'm so sorry, Councillor Green. How was that for or against? Well, my apologies. That is carried. Next is item 2.3, and there was a couple of conflicts that I believe were leaving the room. So I'll read it out while they're leaving. To donate $2,500 to Bloomfield Junior Rugby League Football Club to contribute to the cost of the hire of portable toilets, Indigenous dances and jersey design and manufacture. Do I have a mover of this motion? Moved by Councillor Ruddy. Any seconder? Seconded by Councillor Judge. Any discussion on this item? Councillor McDonald.
Thank you, Chair. I just have I suppose a question, which happy for the director to take it on notice, but I'm wondering, I'm happy to support this. I think it's important that we do it, but given that OHMS have sponsored previously, no doubt OHMS would have had their insignia on uniforms or in some regard. I'm just wondering whether if we're sort of essentially replacing OHMS in this matter, would council have a logo acknowledgement?
Can I answer that? Because I asked that question already. Yes?
Yes, Councillor Ruddy.
I did approach someone from the club to have a conversation about that exactly, and their response was that yes, Orange City Council would then become the major sponsor for this round. So yes,
I'm taking you're happy with that response.
I am. Yes. Yep. Thank you. Yep.
Very well. Councillor Mileto.
Yeah, it's just an observation, and I see there's a breakdown in the costings. I know it's an Indigenous round, but I'm just wondering, I would have liked to have thought that some approach would have been made to somebody who's doing a welcome to country rather than being charged. Council being charged for it.
Always pay for a welcome to country.
Always.
I'm just asking, was there any representation made for somebody to do it?
I would suggest it's offensive to ask them to do it.
I don't think it's offensive. I think it's a legitimate question.
But you're not a First Nations person.
Is that I just can't see the breakdown in there and what that is. I'm just asking a question. Was an observation? It's not. I don't find it offensive at all.
You can have something to say, Director Sharp.
I was just going to say through you, Mr. Chair, we don't critique the applications. We don't ask for further information on the breakdowns. We present them as they are presented to us.
Thank you.
Any further discussion? Yes, Councillor Mallard.
I'm very happy to support this, and great to see local sporting clubs acknowledging, raising awareness of Indigenous culture and celebrating it in this way. I think including costs for welcome to country is essential. I do think it's offensive to suggest that you should ask people to do it for free. It's part of paying the rent. It's part of making amends. I'm really struggling. I'm aware, I know councillors who were in Canberra last week heard some pretty horrid stuff about First Nations people, about a whole range of things, including about acknowledgement, from what I understand, from what I've heard second. And I'd really like to think we can become better educated about this ourselves, all in this chamber. Because if we don't think that's offensive to ask that question, then I think that's something to reflect on and to talk to First Nations people and organisations about why it's important.
Point of order, Mr. Chair. I'll take offence to the comment. I'm merely asking a question with regards to what's in the information, and I'd ask for an apology from the councillor because I wasn't insinuating anything apart from asking a question.
As chair, I'm actually just going to move on and ask if there's any fresh discussion. People have said their thoughts. Fine. Any further discussion on this item? No. Given that, I'm going to put the motion. All those in favour? Any against? Carried. So we can get those other two in, please. So item 2.4 is to donate $2,500 to the Western Legion Dragon Boat Regatta Committee to contribute to the cost of hosting the regatta and promoting the sport within the community. Do I have someone to move this? Moved by Councillor Duffy, seconded by Councillor Steadman. Any discussion on this item? Yes, Councillor McDonald.
Thank you, Chair. I've got a question, and you may not have the answer, Director Sharp. Apologies. On page 20 of the papers there, the total costs, they've put 1,250 to 9,400. And again, like when I'm looking at, as I've done with other ones, when I'm looking at, you know, their costs and their funds have to probably cancel each other out. But I'm a little bit confused as to why it's a range. And yeah, I just
Sure.
it's an application that I don't have a problem with it, but it doesn't provide the information in a way that I'm happy with.
Yeah, the applications are generally done by volunteers in the organisation. They're quite often estimates, and I think that's the case in this way, is that it's estimates, and rather than alluding to being able to do it for the 9,250, they've rounded up and said, look, it'll somewhere be between those two amounts. Discussion with the applicant on this particular one. This one's come in by email with no further discussion.
Okay, so the 2,500 that they're requesting, though, that hasn't been included. That's on top of what? On top of the 9,400 that they get from raffles and charging entry fees. It comes again to this question of, is it a profit-generating exercise?
My understanding is, through you, Mr. Chair. My understanding it's not a profit-generating exercise. If we contribute these funds, they will need to do less fundraising. So they're saying the 9,400 will be covered by raffles and charging of entry fees, which they would do less of.
Thank you. That's clarified. Thank you.
Councillor Kinghorn.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I would just like to propose an amendment that we reduce this amount from 2,500 to 2,000. We haven't given these guys money before. If everything goes through as budgeted, as listed tonight, then that is $11,250 out of $90,000 a year. That brings us down to 8 months' worth if we do that every month. And I just think because
I'll second that.
We haven't done this before, then I think we need to try and bring it down a little bit. So that's proposal.
Excellent. Take that as the motion moved. Any discussion on this? Any further discussion on this item? I think actually it needs to probably be an amendment, so I'll put that as the amendment that we're reducing it to 2,000. All in favour? Any against? It's a 6-6. I believe that means I have a casting chair, and I will support my regional vote and reduce it to 2,000. So that then becomes the motion. Any discussion on the motion? Well, all for? Any against? Carried. So thank you, councillors. That concludes the Finance Policy Committee, with the time being 21:01 for Councillor Whitten to conduct the Infrastructure Policy Committee.
Thank you, Councillor Peterson. I'd like to open the Infrastructure Policy Committee meeting for the 1st of July, the time being 21:02. There are no declarations of interest unless that's changed. Item 2.1, minutes of the City of Orange Traffic Committee meeting held on June 10th, 2025. Recommendation is on page 5. Moved by Councillor Greenhalgh, seconded by Councillor...
Judge?
Not Judgy.
You got a title earlier, so you're working it.
Names turn this way. They used to be turned this way, especially for the newbies. Thank you, Councillor Steadman. Any discussion on this item? No discussion. I'll put the motion. All those in favour? It's carried. Item 2.2 is the minutes of the Electronics City of Orange Traffic Committee extraordinary meeting held on 18th of June 2025. Recommendation is on page 49.
I'll move it.
Moved by Councillor Rudd, seconded by Councillor McDonald.
Need to determine what we're going to do with.
Well, that's up to you, Councillor. I'm in your hands.
It says
Have a
that in
mover.
point 2 of item 2.
Yep,
I'm moving the recommendation as written.
And I've seconded it as written.
Thank you. I got that. So, any discussion on this item? Councillor Mallard.
Just thanks to the staff. I know we had this come from a previous traffic committee meeting and there was a bit of confusion, both an issue with what was written in the report not being accurate and also that, a bit of a need for understanding. So I appreciate we had a briefing to get a better understanding of what's being proposed. Appreciate and thank the staff for indicating that the owner of the building who came and spoke with concerns last time around has agreed to what we're doing. I think it's a good solution that we've come up with by widening the driveways there. We create the opportunity for B-doubles to enter down through Elsham Avenue and make a left-hand turn in. They don't need the Ash Street level crossing for that period. I think reprioritising Huntley Road is a really great outcome. We saw the data in the briefing on the traffic movements and why that makes sense to change it so that you're not making a right turn or a left turn when you're staying on Huntley Road, and that will instead have the priority of way. So yeah, I'm comfortable supporting it, and I understand we're closing the crossing for up to 6 months. That will give an opportunity to gather some data to consider future options, but we'll be able to see what that does in that time frame. But in the meanwhile, the business is there, and the owners of those buildings aren't going to are satisfied that we've resolved their concerns. Thanks.
Any further discussion? I've just got a question to the director. It's going to take 6 months to do the works on that particular intersection.
Depending on the weather we get, it could take up to 6 months, but I would expect it would be finished within about 4 to 5 months.
Thank you, Director. Councillor Greenhouse.
I really don't want to close the road. I just think there's lots of people that travel out to the hospital as a place of work, and I really think we should look at, doing implementing the traffic. And if it doesn't take that long, it's not going to be that cost of money for the traffic control. There's a lot of people that work out that part of town. I think we should just be closing it for when we're doing the roadworks with the traffic control. That's just my opinion.
From the chair, I'm going to move an amendment that we don't close this particular rail crossing. If I can get a seconder.
Happy to second.
Councillor Greenhouse. I'm speaking first, if I may, Councillor. That's right, yeah. Thank you for your guidance. The reason I move the amendment to not close this particular intersection, and I do understand the reasons put forward by the staff, and I respect that. It is heavily used. It is into Leewood. You would be only creating one egress point for the whole of that particular industrial suburb. Also, as we know as a council, it's very hard to get implementation of a rail crossing. And if we give any indication to a government department that we no longer need the use of this particular rail crossing, when we go to ask for additional ones, which we're in the midst of now, hard to get it. And I do read in the report that, the RTA, as they used to be called in their new terminology, is if we wanted to have one in March Street, to continue March Street right through the city and have a rail crossing there, we would have to give up one of our rail crossings. But we have no plans that I'm aware of, this council, to do that, maybe way in the future. So for convenience, I'm never comfortable by taking away infrastructure from the community for any length of time. Like there are some circumstances we have to do it. But to take that infrastructure away from the community for 6 months, which is heavily used for all sorts of purposes, to get access to Bradman Park, to get access to Leewood, to get access to the hospital, to get access to the airport, is a major inconvenience to the community. Councillor Duffy, you wanted to speak.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm going to support the Chair's recommendation, mainly on the lines that the local member and the local councillors marched to keep that back entrance into the hospital. And you have clinical nurses who go that way out to the hospital that are on call, and you also have doctors that come that way, and you're taking away, taking one of those accesses away in a matter of emergency, and I don't think that's a good idea. Also look at the consultation process, and as you said, there's a lot of businesses out there. I'm talking about Black Poly Pipes, I'm talking about Taberna Glass, I'm talking about West Trust, Main Freight, Integral Energy, Apple City Electrics. There's been no discussion with those residents, or very minimal with those organisations as to their access out the back road, which could be going out to the airport or which could be going out to the mines. It's a quick and easy way around there. We're taking an infrastructure or an access away, and we're not giving anything back. We're just taking something away from the residents and their access there. You look at the situation. We even had one of the directors in this room here tell us that it's quicker to go for them to go down from back way down to McDonald's, get a feed, and then come back and they can watch the game of footy at half time.
Stick to the subject. It's getting late, mate. I'm getting tired. Thank you.
So it's totally important. It's just, as I said, it's just not common sense. I support the issue of really the council does not change the priority and wait for the $100,000 for traffic.
Thank you, Councillor Greenhouse. You were next. You had your hand up. Do you change your mind?
No. I'm happy to support the amendment.
Okay. Councillor McDonald. Sorry.
Thank you, Chair. Look, I'm speaking against the amendment. We deferred this. We had a briefing. We were given all the information and all the options. We then, as a group, gave an indication that, okay, what was the next step? Well, the next step was to... No, excuse me. I'm speaking.
Point of order.
But I know what you're going to say. Sit down.
Point of order. I'm not telling you. Look,
briefing meetings against the law.
I was about to say we gave direction. We did not make a decision. We gave an indication as to what the steps might be.
Thank you.
Next steps was that it went to the Traffic Committee. The Traffic Committee has now come back to us with this recommendation. And I think that discussing about leaving that intersection open completely ignores all the data that was given to us during our briefing that was requested, including things like, okay, so if we're changing the priority of the Ash Street Huntley Road, what happens with the B doubles? Where are they queuing over that intersection? So I would think, and maybe it's a question that the director might answer, I would think that if this is the way we move, it would have to go back to the Traffic Committee again, would it not? Because we're fundamentally changing what the Traffic Committee has recommended.
I can answer that question. The decisions, the committees give guidance, unless that Traffic Committee is giving us something that's part of the New South Wales and the roads that they rule over. We can't take that, but this is our road.
Okay, I've got a second question. Everyone keeps saying that road is heavily used. Do we actually have we had any counters on there recently? Or is it just anecdotally?
Aware of any recent counters, but there is a real cost in the traffic control for the works.
To keep the road open.
To keep the road open during the construction works. And I think that was relayed to the councillors in the briefing.
Yeah. My third and final question for regarding the amendment that's proposed, given that the proposal is to keep the crossing open, that negates the need to spend $100,000 or whatever it is to widen Main Freight's entry. So is the amendment to still spend that $100,000 plus whatever the traffic management system is going to cost on top keep that intersection open, or are we not doing that driveway widening? I just want some clarification around that, please.
As per the report, it said that we had either or either, and I'm going for the either, where we don't do any changes and we leave that open. If it means that we're not changing anything on Huntley Road, then that's the amendment, not to close that rail crossing. They can still do the works, but not close the rail crossing. Yeah. Councillor Ruddy, you had a question.
First, I don't think we're discussing closing the rail crossing at all. We're discussing closing the road in order to do some road works to save $120,000. If you're proposing that we keep the road open while we do those road works, we're spending an additional $120,000. This just says widen Main Freight's driveway subject to the owner's consent and close Ash Street for a 6-month period. It doesn't say anything further than that. What you're talking about was discussed but isn't in this motion. I think what you're saying is going to cost our ratepayers an additional $120,000. Is that what you're suggesting?
Are we closing the rail crossing? For 6 months?
Temporarily for 6 months.
For 6 months?
With a review to open it. Yeah. So my motion is that we don't close the rail crossing for the works, right?
That's not in it. So you're saying
motion.
We spend the extra $120,000 of ratepayers' money in order to keep that crossing open while we do roadworks and widen Main Freight's driveway, which is a $20,000 cost. So it's $140,000 you're suggesting that we spend instead of just closing a road for 6 months.
With a review to keep it closed permanently.
Reopen and it'll come back to us for
The
consultation.
review to keep it closed. The whole idea, if you read the report, the agenda is that if we want to do March Street rail crossing, we must give up. It's in the report.
But that's not what this is. That's not what we're moving right now.
It's a little bit like Councillor McDonald's one.
That's not what we're moving right now.
People moved a motion in this council to support a tree group. It didn't read the reports in the committees about what the motion really consisted of.
Read them and recommendations.
I'm not going to debate you, councillor.
Quite clear.
I've just moved my motion, whether you vote for it or not.
I'm trying to get clarification.
Okay.
Is your motion that we spend an extra $140,000?
So I'm here to represent the community of Orange.
And spend
Many companies in Leewood have come to me and said, please do not close that rail crossing. The impact to them is far more than $120,000 of potential spend to manage stop and go signs.
Your
Our ratepayers of this city as well.
$120,000.
We spend that on all sorts of things. But if we are wanting to do the works that we are looking at, do it without impacting those businesses in that area, which are some of the biggest and most important businesses in our community.
What is the impact, and this is probably through Chair to the Director, of not doing those roadworks at all? Like, is that a thing we can not do if it's going to impact everyone so heavily?
The choice isn't not to do the roadworks at all. The works are required as part of the we've got funding, external funding for it. It helps the realignment of Huntley Road as the priority road and supports the Brabham Park sporting precinct.
So the answer there about the 120k ratepayers money, got funding for it, right?
Is that additional 120
The director
covered in
just
the
said that.
funding?
No.
Oh, okay, thank you.
I have a question for the Director.
For it all.
The question to the Director is, I think we were told at a meeting that the money was coming out of the sports precinct money to do the road. Now, I'll let me finish first. Then, if that's a case, the recommendations here from the Traffic Committee was that seek further funding from the government before it's $120,000 to see for further grant. I don't think, is there a rush to do this work? I mean, I can't see any buildings out there and think to map this together, so there's no real rush, is there? Or is there a rush to do it?
We've had this money for a while now. We've deferred it for the construction of the sporting fields where a lot of sand was being imported into the site. So that
So after those trucks have now finished with import of most of the material into site, we now have the opportunity to build the works. So
Microphone, councillor. In the microphone. Talk in the microphone.
The question is, you can't see where we're talking to people because of the way the table's structurally set up. My question is, so if we don't spend that money and lose it, are we? Rush for it, is it?
There is pressure on us to spend the money, yes. So it's certainly
what type
this.
of pressure? I know we know, a lot of us know John Graham, who's the minister and all those type of things there, and we could easily go and chat to him and say, hang on, look, the hold up is we don't want to close this road, we want to support our ratepayers.
There's pressure in that we've had it deferred a couple of times now, and we've got extensions of time with the blessings of Transport for New South Wales. There's the opportunity of winning more work if we can do the work in a timely manner. So the pressure isn't necessarily coming from Transport for New South Wales that you'll lose this money, but there's the opportunity for other grants.
Councillor Kinghorn.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Now, my understanding from previous discussions that we've had on this is that the quickest way to do it is to close the road.
Yes.
Take up to 6 months. So, whatever we do, if we have traffic control or close the road, it's going to annoy people. I would prefer to annoy people for less time. Therefore, I'm not going to support the amendment, but I am going to foreshadow an amendment to change that number 2 for, instead of saying for a 6-month period, for up to 6 months, and undertake consultation post whatever the equivalent thing is for that.
For the duration of the roadworks, for example. Yeah.
Well, once the roadworks are finished, yeah. So that way, if we close it for up to 6 months and then it takes 3 months, well, then it's only 3 months that people are irritated rather than 6. So,
Councillor Judge.
Through you, Chair, I just got a couple of questions for the Director. Councillor Duffy said there were businesses that weren't aware of this closure. Is that correct? All businesses aware?
I didn't do the stakeholder engagement myself, but I do know a number of businesses in the area were made aware of the.
But why are we only making a number when it's going to impact all them businesses?
I'd take that on notice. Yeah. Sorry. Director Jen will answer that question. Thank you.
Through you, Mr. Chair. There's a process that we go through with informing and consulting with residents and businesses. There's 2 stages of that. So a number of businesses were consulted and spoken with, particularly the ones that were going to be dramatically impacted. Those were spoken to in the first stage. And then once the resolution gets progressed, that's when we then speak with the next level further out. So the first stages have. The second stages had not at the stage that the paper was written.
But so all businesses have been contacted, have they?
As at now, I wouldn't say, when you say all businesses, where is the line? But the majority of businesses, I believe, have been contacted either in person or by letter.
Okay, Councillor Duffy's got a list that haven't been contacted, and they're within 100, 200 metres of the railway, and it's going to impact their businesses. So
I'm happy to take that list on notice and look into it for you, Councillor.
Thank you, Director. Now, councillors, we're coming up to 9:30. I move a motion that we go home at 9:30. No,
sorry.
I've got to ask an extension to carry on the meeting. Do I have a move as an extension that we go? What time do we want to go, Mr. Mayor? 10. It's been moved by Councillor McDonald, seconded by me. All those in favour that we go till 10? Thank you. Councillor Judge.
Got another question through you, Chair, to the Director. The cost, we're saying it's 100,000 to keep it open for road control for that intersection. Even if we did shut it, we're still going to need that because we're working on that intersection. Is that correct?
No, it's additional because it's a lot cheaper to control a road with traffic control from 2 ends. You've got 3-way traffic control. It complicates the staging of the works, but it also means that you have to have control on 3 legs of
rather than 2.
So there's straight up it increases the cost of traffic control by 50%. Then you've got because of the staging issues that it complicates the matter for the construction, because you can't construct through there in one piece if it was to be closed. And it's quite often that we do close roads for construction and just leave it open for those people that are accessing properties or something along those lines. But for this, closing the road will actually speed the works up and save a considerable amount of traffic control. So we are choosing to leave the works open. I would be pulling the tender recommendation that's in the closed section of council, because we would then have to go back and negotiate with contractors over that arrangement. They were based on the direction from council. They were given an instruction would be closed for the works. This complicates it. It means that we need to get some renegotiate with the councillors, renegotiate with the contractors if we are to keep it open.
Thank you.
Councillor Mallard.
I think you just went to the question I've been waiting to ask. We've got item 6.2 enclosed tonight for the tenders for Huntley Road urbanisation. Without going into any confidential information, if we were to adopt the amendment, are you able to say a bit about what the implications would be for...
Well, maybe we shouldn't go to tender until we have a resolution of council. That's generally the smart idea to do, right? I can answer that without going to the director because I've been around a while.
Right. I'll speak on the amendment now, if that's okay, Chair.
Yes, thank you, Councillor Mallard.
Thanks, Chair. I wasn't... Yeah, I don't support the amendment. I'm happy for us to proceed. I thank the staff for the work they've done on this. When we do work on roads, it's going to cause inconvenience. That's the nature of it. It's going to cause disruption. I think I like Councillor Kinghorn's succinct way of saying let's try to minimise the time that we're causing the pain if possible. Just traffic management, if we're talking about, so we're not widening the driveways for main freight, so they're still going to have trucks coming in there, so you're going to have traffic management for B doubles while you're trying to realign a road. It doesn't make sense to me. And we're talking about a realignment and a reprioritisation of the roads that will actually help some of the traffic flow that Councillor Duffy's talked about for people who want to get out to the Huntley Road entrance, which, yes, it's fantastic that that's reopened into the health precinct. People are going to be able to come off Rabban Way and not have to wait for any traffic coming through Ash Street once it's reopened, for them to make a right turn off Huntley Road into Huntley Road. They'll be able to get straight down from there and turn into the hospital. People who are going out to the airport, and we know that that is much more of the traffic movements than what comes across the Ash Street crossing. The data that we were shown in the briefing, it is something that will, yes, make changes. It will, yes, cause temporary inconvenience. If there are businesses who were contacting individual councillors raising concerns, it would have been good if those people had been encouraged to come here and speak in the public forum and put their concerns in front of all the councillors.
That's why they elect us, mate, to do that, to represent them.
I'm still speaking, thanks.
Oh, I know, but I'm the chairman. I can overrule you. Carry on.
You're debating and interjecting. You're not overruling me.
Well, call it whatever you like.
Just looks
Carry
rude.
on.
It just looks rude. It reflects badly on you.
I'm just answering a question.
We're going to be here till bloody midnight.
Carry on, Councillor Mallard.
All right. Yep. Anyway, look, I am very happy and comfortable with what we've been presented. I think we're creating complications for our whole process. We've got tenders ready to go. We've got work that needs to be done. We've been told that the funding needs to be used. We've got a plan to do it. So I'm not supporting that we change from that plan.
Councillor Powell.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. it just really sounds like Groundhog Day again, because we deferred it. We went to a Friday, I think it was the 13th of June, to unpack all of this stuff here. So the questions that are coming up to now have actually been answered. We looked at it thoroughly through aspects of Jason, who actually put the whole thing together. We actually looked at the scenarios of not closing down the rail line, but to put boulders there just to, as a temporary design and to allow traffic to go through. We've gone through scenarios. There was one interjection in relation to one owner that turned up here on the film, said here thing. Right to the staff, they went out there, sourced out the man, they met with them, they come back on the 13th of June, we unpacked it. Everything that we've gone through is said that what we've got here. Because we as councillors that attended that meeting, that's available for everybody here on our laptops to go and see what we actually discussed in relation to that, to bring it back to this meeting to approve. So what we've done here is what we've approved, sir. So, what we wanted to bring back here to have an open discussion again to decide. So I'm speaking against amendment, and because the data around the traffic flow, as what Councillor Mallard already said, good question from Councillor Ruddy in relation to this amendment went through. It's bound costing again. So I just really am. As what Councillor Duffy said, we may end up in the midnight, so I'm going to be quiet now, so thank you.
Councillor Greenhalgh.
Thank you. Through you, Mr. Chair. I sort of take a bit of offence that, we do go to the briefings, but we don't make decisions in those briefings, and we have a right to change our mind from those briefings because public don't actually get to see what the minutes, like what the agenda is until it goes up. In that time, I know I've been contacted by many people that work at the linen service, at the hospital. So we wouldn't be doing our job if we didn't bring those matters before council to say, hey, this is the concerns of our public. We talk about, the community strategic plan and listening, and we're elected by those guys. So we really do need sometimes to just pause and listen to what they're saying. And sometimes features and benefits, outweigh. Like, we all sit here and say we've got infrastructure that actually costs us money, but we don't close it down just because we can't afford the extra 100,000. So we do need to start thinking about the community, and if this is going to inconvenience that many people and we can still do it with that, I'm confused.
Thank you. No further discussion? All righty. Thank you everyone for the robust debate. That's what this public forum is about, on the record. Motions are debated in this forum, not in that room on a Friday afternoon. So when you're talking about stuff here, the people who are watching online, the media, ratepayers, they all get to be part of the discussion as well, not the Friday afternoon briefing session, which are not legal under the Local Government Act. This is the forum where you debate publicly all items on the public record. So, and I'm entitled, like every one of you, to raise a concern on behalf of the community, be it an amendment or full. So I thank you all for your robust debate. I'm going to put the motion of the amendment, and the amendment is, as I said, and the secret word in there is to review the closure permanently. That's why I do not want to disrupt those businesses in Leewood or the entire community if we can do it in a way that does not disrupt them by closing that entire intersection. So, all those in favour of the amendment?
Can you clarify what the actual amendment is?
I'll have to refer to the note taker now.
I believe the amendment is not to close Ash Street crossing.
Correct.
During the construction works.
And we have a foreshadowed as well from Councillor Kinghall.
Sorry, can I clarify? My understanding was also not to widen the main freight driveways. Is that?
I just said not to close that intersection. Nothing to do with driveways.
To change those driveways.
Yeah.
But both things are in in the recommendation, both things
That's
are
the
there.
printed
you're
recommendation. My
proposing
amendment
to
doesn't mention it.
remove-
Not to close that intersection, permanent. The roadworks, yeah, the rail crossing.
Permanency is not in here. We're not talking about permanently
No,
closing
I'm just,
anything.
the amendment is not to close that intersection or that
During the
road during the works.
And that would, and then, because it says here in item 2, widen the main freight driveways as per the attached plans, subject to consent, and
That's the
close Ash
motion.
Street for 6 months. So you're suggesting
They're
we
just
do the
wiping
complete
item
opposite?
2.
Wiping all of it. Do not close that intersection.
Okay, so number 2 you're suggesting is gone, and your
Yeah.
number 2 is just don't close the
I
intersection
don't have a
while
number
we do
2.
roadworks.
Yeah.
Yes?
But the road stays open during the roadworks, yeah.
Yes, okay.
Good? Okay, put the amendment. All those in favour? 1, 2, 3, 4. Against? The amendment's been lost. We have a foreshadowed amendment from Councillor Kinghorn.
Which was just to have the motion as is, except to change for a 6-month period for up to 6 months and undertake consultation past the closure period.
Just to clarify, you're suggesting that it's only closed for the roadworks and not for the, I don't know.
Just
Up to 6 months
up
rather
to 6
than
months. So for the
a
duration
6
of the roadworks, up to 6 months.
And was
So-
6 months to include a period of, I don't know, gathering data or no?
Absolutely, we will.
So Councillor Kinghorn, may I suggest something?
You may.
You can move the motion with a word change. You don't need a foreshadow. You don't need an amendment.
Can the motion
We
already
already
been
have a
moved?
mover and a seconder.
Oh, we already
So-
have a mover and a seconder. Okay.
Yeah.
It's been that long. Who moved it? Councillor Mallard, would you be in the mood for changing a word so we don't have to go through the motions of a foreshadowed amendment?
I think it was Councillor McDonald moved.
Is this Councillor McDonald and Councillor Mallard?
What I seconded, but
I'm happy to, I'm
all
happy
right,
to
no, I moved
incorporate it in,
Yep.
into.
Yeah, I'm happy as well. Yep.
You good with that?
Yep.
Thank you. I
to you.
appreciate your understanding. So we have a motion. Speak into your microphone, please, sir.
Work that's being done. With the work that's being done, the costs of traffic committee with the two-way, what's the story with that? What's the cost of the traffic committee to keep the road open, to go out to the airport, buses to travel through, all those things? What's the cost of the traffic?
I'd have to provide that separately via email to councillors.
So it'd be, it would be 3/4 of the $100,000 or would it be half $100,000?
No, I would imagine it's, if they've made an estimate that it's $100,000, something would be in there, would be around the staging of the works, not necessarily the whole works. And I'd imagine the traffic control is in the order of a couple of $100,000. What I said was if you have a 3-way traffic control arrangement, it will automatically cost 50% more than a 2-way traffic control arrangement.
So it's up there. Okay.
Yeah, certainly up there.
Alrighty, we've got a motion. You know what it is? All in favour? Against? Sorry, I'm against. Okay, thank you for your debate. We'll now move on to, where are we up to?
Colleagues, I will leave and can follow on by Zoom.
3.1.
No, thanks, Councillor Peterson. Item 3.1, current works. Recommendation is on page
Happy to move.
60. It's been moved by Councillor McDonald, seconded by Councillor Mallard. Any discussion on this item? There being no discussion.
Excuse
Oh,
me.
you're voting, are you? Okay, all those in favour? Against? The motion's carried unanimously. Thank you, councillors. I'd like now to invite Greenhouse to the chair.
Hello.
Thank you, Councillor Whitten. I'd now like to open the Recreation and Culture Committee meeting on the 1st of July, with the time being 9:38. Items 1.1, declarations of interest. I don't believe we had any declarations of interest. So we'll move on to item 2.1, the minutes of the Bicycle Community Committee meeting held on the 4th of June 2025. There's a recommendation on page 5. Do I have a mover and a seconder? Moved by Councillor Mallard, seconded by Councillor Ruddy. Is there any discussion on this item? No discussion. I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Unanimous. Thank you, councillors. That's the quickest sport and rec meeting we've done.
Matter rising, Madam Mayor, Deputy Mayor, sorry, Deputy Mayor.
New promotions happening tonight.
I'm the second one here. I just want to acknowledge that on Saturday, Councillor Mallard and I attended the Goal Seekers permanent orienteering track due to the Mayor and Deputy Mayor were unavailable, and it was just an amazing opportunity to see and witness the tracks around the Elephant Park. So really excited about that. They did wanted to congratulate Ben Keegan and the staff for their support, and Orange City Council for their support in relation to establishing that. It's great to get that information out because I think it's going to be great for the NDIS disability. They have a short track there, it goes for about 1.4 kilometres. Because it's all flat, they can just move around there with wheelchairs up to 3.4 kilometres at length. So it just creates that, again, activity and opportunity to a recreational moving around for things. So thank you.
And who finished it first, you or Councillor Mallard?
Sorry?
We just had Vicky's and drank a couple while we watched it.
Didn't actually complete the challenge.
Not yet.
I went the next morning because I didn't have my gear on. Sorry, my shoes on.
Thank you, councillors. And also a big congratulations to our under-16s hockey champions as well. What a fabulous weekend it was for the opening of the Sid Smith hockey field. Mr. Mayor, it was wonderful, wasn't it? It was great to see the 30 teams in town. So, yeah, another project that we've ticked off our list. So, with no further discussion, I'll close the Recreation Culture Committee meeting with the time being 9:41, and I'll call on Councillor Ruddy to conduct the Services Policy Committee meeting.
I would like to open the Services Policy Committee meeting on the 1st of July 2025 with the time being 9:42. We had no declarations of interest. Has anything changed? Nope. Item 2.1, minutes of the Orange Health Liaison Committee meeting on the 30th of April. So recommendation on page 5. Do I have a mover and seconder? Moved by Councillor Kinghorn, second by Councillor McDonald. Thank you. Any discussion on this item? Amazing. I will put the motion. All for? Wonderful. Any against? Councillor Duffy left the room. Yeah. Item 2.2, minutes of the Community Safety and Crime Prevention Committee meeting on the 2nd of June 2025. Recommendation on page 27. Can I have a mover? Councillor Steadman and second by Councillor McDonald. Any discussion? Amazing. I will put the motion. All for? Unanimous. Thank you, councillors. That concludes the Services Policy Committee meeting with the time being 9:43, 1 minute, and I call on the Mayor to conduct the Regional and Economic Development Policy Committee meeting.
I was going to do a matter of rise.
Don't even think
No,
about it.
you're right. Give it.
Councillor Ruddy, and I'd like to open the Regional and Economic Development Policy Committee meeting. Open at 9:43 p.m. Councillors, we go to item 1.1, declaration of interest. I don't think there's any. So let's go to item 2.1, minutes of the Economic Development Community Committee held on the 4th of June 2025. Can I have a mover and a seconder? Moved by Councillor Kinghorn, seconded by Councillor Steadman. Discussion regarding this item. There being none, I'll put the motion. A show of hands. Carried. Thank you, councillors. That concludes the Regional and Economic Development Committee meeting. And the time now being 44, and I just beat you, Councillor Roddy. Thank you. Okay. Councillors, there are no rescission motions. Let's go to general reports. There's a recommendation, 5.1, classification of land.
Happy to move.
Thank you. Recommendation on page 39. Who was the mover, sorry? Councillor McDonald, seconded by Councillor Roddy. Any discussion? Being no discussion, I'll put the motion. Show of hands for. Unanimous. Duffy, do you have something?
Notice a rescission for the Ash Street.
Okay.
Foreshadowing. So the councillor is foreshadowing?
No, I'm giving
Give
a
him
rescission.
one.
I'm giving notice that a rescission.
Does it have to be in writing or verbal's fine?
Yeah. I think the term is foreshadowing a notice of rescission tomorrow, and the councillor will need to give 3 signatures to that rescission motion by 12 o'clock tomorrow.
Thank you.
To me.
Okay, we're going into closed meeting. Chief Executive Officer will now advise Council if any written submissions have been received relating to any item advertised for consideration by closed meeting of Orange City Council.
There have been none, sir.
Thank you. In accordance with the Local Government Act 1993 and the Local Government General Regulation 2021, in the opinion of the Chief Executive Officer, the following businesses of kind referred to in section 10A2 of the Act and should be dealt with in confidential session of Council closed meeting to the press and public. Item 6.1, tenders of supply of road base. 6.2, tenders of Huntley Road urbanisation. 6.3, tenders of supply of ready mix concrete. 6.4, electricity procurement, small market sites, and 6.6, lease cafe at Lake Canobolas, are classified confidential under the provisions of section 10A2C. Information that would, if disclosed, confer a commercial advantage on a person with whom the council is conducting or proposes to conduct business. Item 6.5, lease of the Orange Regional Conservatorium Incorporated is classified confidential under the provisions of section 10A2C. Information that would, if disclosed, confer commercial advantage on a person with whom the council is conducting or proposes to conduct business. And section 10A2D(I), commercial information of a confidential nature would, if disclosed, prejudice the commercial position of the person whom supplied it. And item 6.7, submission redaction report for the 1st of July 2025 is classified confidential under the provision of the Act. Section 10A2E, information that would, if disclosed, prejudice maintenance by law. Can I have somebody move and second that we go into closed session of this meeting? Moved by Councillor Greenhouse, seconded by Councillor Powell. And we'll now wait for the live stream to be stopped.